Call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Environmental Commission of the Borough of Fairhaven. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this meeting on June 12th, 2024 is available by call-in phone number or through Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions, comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time.
Sean, just before we move on, there is a question about how the appointment of the chair goes forward. Therefore, I'm going to suggest that we recognize you as the acting chair until such a time as we determine the appropriate chair. There is a process by which it's done. I haven't heard from the mayor, but typically the Environmental Commission elects the chair from the body.
The mayor has elected to use his judicial power to appoint directly.
Yeah, there's a provision. What I read was the mayor.
He's going to have to send that to me. Okay, I'm going to want to see that.
Right.
And I want to see it because it's against standard practice. No objection to you, Sean. I'm just saying. I have no knowledge of that. And I didn't receive anything that would indicate that that was the reason.
Yeah, I think there's a fair amount of deviation, standard practice deviates from the rules. Like, for example, chair is only supposed to be for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
And, we never honored that. So, which I think is a bad practice, either change your rule or honor the rule.
I apologize for this. I'm a parliamentarian at the college council where I am. So I know my rules and I'm careful about it because if we have the wrong body sitting, that can invalidate the activities of the body. That's why I'm asking this question. Okay, so we just need clarification. I'm going to accept that statement now, but I do want to see clarification that is acceptable.
Yeah, okay.
Appropriate practice.
I mean, it's there. So it's-
Thank you.
Yeah, it's in the statute. We have that.
Thanks, just send it over.
All right, I'll finish up.
No worries.
Notice of the meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 22nd, 2024, probably June. Posted in the Borough website and bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Environmental Commission Secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. Okay, the statement pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Sure. Sean Bailey.
Here.
Jesse Murray.
Here.
Anna Antonin.
Here.
William Dorner.
Here.
Kelly Flanagan.
Here.
Susan Globus.
Here.
Gary Patterson, noted he was the absent. Scott Peters.
Yes. Here.
Also present, Councilman Olson and Borough Secretary Christy Larson. You have a quorum.
Thank you. So I believe everyone had a chance to read the minutes from last meeting, which was April. Are there any comments or concerns with the minutes as they were shared? No? All right, do we vote to?
Yeah,
accept
you
them?
make a motion to.
Motion to accept the minutes from April 10th.
One second.
Thank you. Do we vote?
Yes.
Is
Yeah, I
it-
think
is it a
so.
yea or nay?
Yes.
Or-
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Just a voice vote.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving into current business. Jesse, update on the environmental resource.
Yeah, so we were supposed to have a meeting on the ERI, smaller group, but there was too many of us because everyone's too excited to be working on it. So, smaller group will be working, I believe Anna, Susan and Kelly are gonna meet, and then I figured you and I can meet separately about mapping stuff,
Yes.
since that's gonna be built into that, so.
Sure.
Figure we can meet separately and then, either talk together here or, I can meet with whoever from the smaller group.
Yeah, we could kind of workshop wordsmithing and get it back to you to review it, if that works.
But
I brought this in, this is the super GPS, have I shown this yet?
No.
This GPS is accurate to the size of a pizza box. So when we want to locate anything, this is university. It's about a $5,000 unit if you can get one. But we can use it, if we want to talk about things we want to locate in the borough, so we can do that and then feed it over into that. So if you need to find something.
yes.
I'm currently mapping the trees on my campus. We have the biggest campus in New York City at 204 acres. And we have probably over 1,500 trees, but we have no clue where they are and their condition. So this is going out, my students are going out, we have 150 trees so far in. So we'll have a separate. Pardon?
You're doing a tree inventory?
Again, this is accurate, it's smaller than that table.
For shade tree?
Yeah, they have one in the works, with I believe it's a grant. We may have contributed some, but they have 2,500 trees or something that I don't know if it's that fancy of a device, it might be just on the iPhone.
Yeah.
But they are, maybe you want to check with the Shade Tree Commission.
Yeah, whatever they're doing, I mean, I'm happy to help.
Maybe you can augment, because there's more than 2,500 trees, but that's where the number came in.
Okay,
They said, how many trees can you give us for X dollar amount? And the answer was 2,500.
okay, yeah, well, I don't know how they're gonna do it, so I have to figure it
I know it's an external company. And
out. No, that's cool, yeah.
Drew, with the mapping though, I mean, not just for the ERI, but thinking for other things I know we've talked about, maybe even just besides incorporating the ERI, but like I know with this, I know we want to include all the stormwater and rain gardens and everything anyway, but if there's anything else we could think of, I figured a good, just a mapping.
If they're gonna
No.
do that, if the Shade Tree Commission is gonna do that, Brian, one of the things we wanna make sure we get out of the contract is the raw data. Because then Jesse and I can, you work with it, you know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of times they wanna produce a product and give you a product and then charge you if we want the
We have
data.
the software that we can download.
We just need an Excel file with the XY coordinates of all the trees. So if they're doing it, they should be able to provide that to us.
I think I want to say the Natural Areas Committee was initially trying to GPS invasive species areas too, and that was a project a long time ago. I don't know if that's still planned or going on, but to have maybe some invasive species patches around town and open space areas is something else to think about. But I figured maybe this could be kind of a little separate,
Yeah, we can do it as a.
whole mountain, yes,
Okay.
so,
That's great.
but that's where we're at right now, yeah.
Great.
Is there a date we're working maybe backwards from or working forwards to?
Not yet, because since we're all gonna be doing it ourselves, I think it's a matter of figuring out how much we would like to add to it. I know we've looked at other towns' ERIs to see what they've done. And, it's a matter of how much work there is to do and how we can divide and conquer it, so. To be determined, but hopefully we'll have a better idea once we all get back together again and see how much we actually would like to incorporate.
Yeah, given the financial constraints, and we're gonna do it in-house, it
Yeah.
slows down the process,
Yeah.
but hopefully the quality stays the same. That's the idea.
Do we have a target date of when we're getting back together, at least to exchange info? Like, what's the overall schedule?
Yeah, I think at least, if you guys can meet, before the next meeting or within the next two meetings or so, just given your schedules.
Do some time during the week, three of us
Yeah.
can kind of figure that out.
Sounds
And then
good.
send it to you guys for that.
Yeah, that works.
By the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And are you working towards like an outline and it's like kind of predetermined or just using the old version and trying to
It's-
just?
It's a matter of updating the old version. I don't know if you've reviewed that at all, but yeah, it's supposed to be updated every 5 years. And so we wanted to take a look to see what exactly has been done, but since the last version was completed.
Mhm.
And where, what we want to add in, and really kind of see just from there what needs to be added. So we're planning to use that as a base and just adding to it. Otherwise it would just be a lot more work. We want to start over again. So,
I feel like it's in good shape. I mean, especially comparing it to Rumson's. I mean, theirs is living online, but it's written.
It's still
out well,
relevant,
Yeah.
but there's just a lot that's going on.
Digestible, so
Mhm.
just add to that.
I mean, some of the good news is that we haven't changed as much as a town demographically, and like, and there was other areas like it, or whatever. didn't fall into something as a lot of new building, a lot of new construction. So at least in our case, the town today doesn't look radically different, I'd say 2,000,
Yeah,
but we want to update it with new information that would be appropriate.
that and priorities that folks from different committees and commissions have been identifying as, kind of things they would like to work on. So may not get to write an invasive species plan, but maybe that could be some target goals, like we can have as a section of, here's target goals that, fits into all of the open space and whatnot that we like to work on.
I think we thought that one of the things we think about the ERI is a way to communicate to the council.
Mhm.
Where are the stress areas, where are the areas that we need to do something more? I mean, I think that's really kind of what we're thinking.
Yeah.
It's a way to put in stone what the needs are.
Yeah.
Long term, and short term.
Okay, so the name inventory, it's not just like a static list of what's in town, it's actually a bit of a strategy summary as well.
Yeah, environmental strategy of, where the, again, like where the stressor points are, like on our shoreline areas, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, invasive species is a big topic. So things like that, where there could be decisions made through the council to do through the town. This document is highlighting all the environmental pieces.
So would it make sense to come back in July with like at least like an outline of what we want to cover in the next version, so we can all have a view of that?
I think that's the point is once, because I know Kelly has had comments, I know I had comments on it. I don't know who else has initially, but I think we were trying to highlight all the pieces that need to get updated. So I think that's something we can discuss at the next meeting is here's all the pieces that we've identified as needs to be updated.
And who's gonna work on what?
Yeah.
Okay. So a game plan in July. So that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, for the first iteration.
And if anybody has not read it thoroughly and given feedback or comments to us, that'd be helpful as well. Because we have already read it and given our feedback and notes. Some people on this committee is newer than others, and so I don't know if they have provided feedback or comments
I have
or
notes.
things that are not. Yeah, so that would be helpful before we begin to meet to hear from everybody.
And Christy, can you remind me, did anybody else ever get back to us from the environmental roundtable of any feedback?
Like Karen and.
Do you not know? I didn't think so. Yeah, okay. All right. Something we could always ping them with too, if we identify things.
Incorporate the weed study too. She just had them. The weed study. I just got one from Lloyd. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we'll keep you posted on. Okay. When we meet.
Great, thank you. Anything else on that?
Yeah.
Stormwater management is the next item.
Yep, so, we had, the theme of the Environmental Commission table at the level we lived in was based on stormwater management. We created a tri-fold brochure, Sawyer Flow in Fairhaven. I regret that I don't have any on me. We did use it at, the Rumson, Rally for the Two River Eco Fest, last week, and I think many of them were used. We only had 30 of them printed, because we didn't have a budget or we didn't have them through the printer. But it seemed to be great. It was very tied to DIY low-cost initiatives you can do to curb your stormwater on your own property. There were some examples from Fairhaven, so that went over very well from the feedback. As Jesse mentioned, we were trying to work on mapping out stormwater and creek overflow. There are some creeks that are need to be highlighted. People can't see them from the road because they're overgrown. But it's just part of the ongoing process to help improve our stormwater, especially because so far this year, there has been highlights at the Shrewsbury River Yacht Club. At the outfall there, the bacteria counts have been over threshold. And so we just want to keep an eye out for it and remind folks to pick up after their pets. Reduced fertilizer, and all that other things too. So Jesse, do you have anything?
I think that pretty much covers it for right now. Did you, and with the pamphlet, have any of the other, like the planning or zoning, have they seen that at all?
No, it was a very last minute, we had to get it printed before Lovejoy lived in very quickly, so it just was like a staple
be
job at
A
30.
good thing to even just like
Sure.
circulate to them, maybe Chrissy can circulate to them.
Yeah,
Is it,
Sure, just send it.
okay.
was that is it sort of a relative of the planning board thing that we, started a couple years ago, or a year ago maybe?
Yeah, but there's no financial stuff that you wanted to input because it's just, I didn't have that stuff. It's just green garden, native plants. There's quite a bit. I could circulate it to here and to other boards and just get feedback that we have. But I do think it's a worthwhile and useful piece of literature for sure. And that I do also think eventually, a larger informative workshop or, meeting just for folks to understand the part what's going on in the river too. Some of these outfalls and what they can do in their part, is really important, so.
You know why the bacteria has increased at the, you mentioned that
So last year, they did have people come out and it was based on, dog waste, animal waste, pet waste from upstream.
really,
Yeah, so last year I went to about 25 different homes and just knocked on their door and gave them some literature. But, it is quite that's where it stems from. People don't realize just living in half mile and mile into the river, everything goes into the.
it's possible maybe something when they do the community blast, put something in there reminding people of this happening.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if that's,
Yeah. I mean, Betty Ann was one that's like printed out the literature for me and,
well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like we get the daily
Sure.
things and just.
yeah.
I know it's on the front sign, so go back to your, I see that once in a while.
Yeah, but it's, when you get the e-blast, hopefully the more you get out there,
Yeah, you walk through.
yeah. I mean, I'm just,
We should have. Been doing that. But there's no longer.
and it seems like Fairhaven has quite an increase in animals in the last couple of years.
I mean, there's a tremendous amount, like,
A lot more than we used to have.
yeah, sure.
COVID.
So, understanding.
So, yeah.
Two cats.
Then, the whole idea about slow the flow, right? Get it into the ground before
Right.
it goes out. And the rain, the amount of storms we have and the amount of runoff that we have has definitely increased as well. We have a great photo courtesy of Elise of McCullough Pond in front overflowing its banks, which is, just
It's happened a couple times this
of
year.
course, right? So it's relatable. So, but that's why I think a larger, make it fun, but educational kind of understanding why this needs to happen, right? Because we are a coastal community.
Right.
So I mean, when you, sorry, just when you say what is it that needs to happen?
Just everybody has to play a part, understanding that just
Education.
because you don't live right on the river, that you live further in, you have to understand what your actions and how they affect the coastal. And people crab there, and people fish there, and people swim, and they kayak and everything, and understanding what is in the water. It might look clear, but there's a lot of bacteria and there's a lot of other things that are so just.
Yeah, and some of the management issues, I mean, with McCarter Pond, one of the things you can do, and part of the question we're having is, are the rain events becoming more frequent, and they're becoming more intense? And so in that case, that puts a load on the system for the high flow. And one of the things you probably could do is improve the outflow with multiple pipes. Because Brian and I were back and forth about this. He's saying make a big pipe. Yeah, but you get the same flow through 4 little pipes that you get from a big pipe. You can lay them all so you don't have to mess with the, you just lay them all on the line together and take the flow out in a much longer area. So that may be a necessary long-term improvement for the outflow of McCarter, handle this significant rain events.
I think it all relates to some of these larger projects that I think the town needs to focus on and that we've been trying to stress is like living shorelines, the rain gardens. We've had these really good backed, reports for a very long time. People or outside organizations willing to work with us and,
If you can decrease the flow, and again, my 200-acre campus, I've been working because we have combined sewers in Staten Island. And every gallon of rainwater I can keep out of the combined sewer is a big deal because it doesn't overflow into the river. So You know, but the challenge is, what do you do? I mean, part of this, can we stop some of the rain from the system, right? And have put McCarter under so much stress, is that we need
Right.
mitigation along the way. I'm just, yeah, we need to look at that.
Yeah.
We're gonna have real extreme, short, strong
From
rain
a,
events.
from a visuals like point of view, have we considered putting sign, those like level signs or like security fence? Have we ever put a sign that's at all of the riverbanks and been like, this is a really high bacteria time, it's like we're in a red zone right now, so it's like really also costs people in the area. You're going for a walk and you don't see like a red warning sign, especially if kids are going down there. Like, has that ever been a consideration when we have these realms that we don't want to be in?
Like a heat advisory, but
Oh,
like.
yeah, but like for bacteria,
After a big rain event, you never.
don't go to the water, right?
That should be, that should be
But-
flagged, folks.
But this is right, and one of the things that we've talked about before, it's like that started becoming monitored just a year ago, and that's when the results went up, and that's when Ocean Action put it on their thing as one of the beach closings. But I don't believe the outfall, Fourth Creek, all the other outfalls in Fairhaven are not monitored, right? As regular. So. Yeah,
So-
if that's an advocacy that we want and, who to talk to, do we ask Clean Ocean, and we can get that on there, it comes again from volunteers that are taking water. You can ask and call the DEP to come in and take it, but I don't think that's regularly.
They do their own sampling on the river,
Sure.
but yeah, that's the other part is it's volunteer work. That's
So at the yacht club, when it had elevated levels, how did we know that? Did we call someone in to measure it? Was it
That,
visually observed? Was it?
I believe a neighbor there who had just recently moved had asked to just get it tested,
Mhm.
and then it became,
Asked to, sorry, just trying to,
asked-
who did, asked us to do it or
No,
asked the town?
no,
or-
the DEP.
Oh, okay.
And then Clean Ocean Action puts that material, in, so that they put that on their social media and website as a beach closing, just like you might get in Seabright or Monmouth Beach or
Okay.
whatever. There's a sewage outfall that as a beach closing. So I don't know. This is where I know the Navasink River Municipalities Committee had informed us on a lot of this stuff as well. So,
Yeah, I think, like broader information dissemination, like the town does not have a town Instagram, which is, I think, lacking. That would be a really good place to post this information, so people can have quick access to it. Something to kind of just talk about, but like, the more people understand that it's not just the houses on the river. We always hear about the fertilization of the ones on the Navasink, and it also has to, I'm back from the Fourth Creek,
Right.
that's.
So I think having a good map of our water story, of where people are in location to water source,
getting
and
that
how the
information out.
water is actually flowing
Mhm.
will help kind of.
Yeah, I just think that
Sure.
not a lot of people are armed with that info,
Yeah.
and I think that the town, obviously, there's no presence online for this stuff. There's no centralized location for people to find that, so that would be something that
I think Facebook page is the,
yeah, a lot of us are. I sell things on Facebook, but that's about it, but I think Instagram would be probably a smarter.
but
Yeah.
it's also.
So what are, and sorry, just, in this case, what are we trying to do? We're just trying to make them aware of things they can do to do differently?
Yes, because it's all impacts our health of the environment, right? And so understanding that everybody has a role to play and that we are a coastal environment, everyone comes to Fairhaven, one of the lures is for the river. It's
Yeah,
for
sure.
access to it and everything. And so I think as an environmental commission of this town, advocating for the health of the river and informing residents of what that is a huge part of our role.
And how do we do that now?
That's what we're trying to decide.
We don't. Is it a gap? Like it doesn't happen now or it does?
So we've been working on trying to create educational programs. For the past 4 years I've been on this commission, we've been trying to prioritize living shorelines and other coastal improvements for this town and McCarter, the dredging and some of our waterways. It gets blocked by council a lot.
And RMC definitely also.
Well, we've had, Living Shoreline project at Normandy Park for years. Where there's allocated funds in there to be used for the educational, the design, the engineering design. We've had ALS as a partner who was willing and able to help us find grant money.
So is
That,
there a vote? by
You
council?
know that, you were
You
sitting
were-
on.
you were
the
there.
You were sitting.
and
in
we took the
DC
photos
for
of the
talking about
erosions
this.
down at the
No, I know.
banks.
There was a vote to not do a project.
It's never brought up, it's never makes the agenda. It never gets put, we had ALS come here and present to us, we had Nick, Perkins talk to us. But everything gets stalled because it just never gets moved and pushed. We had that on all of our year reports that this is a priority. But it never makes its way onto the agenda.
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about council. I mean, it took 10 years for McCarter Pond, right?
Yeah,
Right?
right.
So the pace of government is what the title of this, what I'm gonna say is, took 10 years from McCarter Pond. I've been working on the tree ordinance since I started in January. We're almost there. The person, the liaison before me worked on it for over 3 years. Like, it's super, super slow. And it's shocking, right? I'm new to the seat. Cause I'm used to business, right? Our decisions in the home, my wife and I talk and it's done. Things are slow.
I mean, I understand that.
Feels like
That's
an us
also,
problem.
But you should still be bringing it up as our liaison,
Yeah.
and I know the past couple meetings when things were brought up, especially with the grants and talking about the Living Shoreline to Normandy and 21 Fairhaven Road. It would have been nice for you to be advocating for us in your position, and you weren't, and you were pretty much siding with everybody else. And so that's kind of, I mean, even just bringing it up, saying, hey, I know this may not be number one right now, but still keep bringing it up. I know Tracy was always doing that for us. She's still doing it for us, even though she's not our liaison. So, I mean, that's a huge part of why you're here with us too, is you're understanding that this is a huge deal for us. And even seeing the Normandy now, it's not in a good spot, and that to kind of lump that together with 21 Fairhaven Road is not a great idea, because they're two completely separate entities. That bulkhead's gonna be failing, and that could be a total litigation issue. So like, it's important.
So what happens is, like, we'll just rewind the tape. John says to me, we need to have 4 pipes. And you say, we need to do the bulkhead. And someone said something over here, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Am I supposed to write a resolution? Am I, like, I look to this body and the governing body looks to this body to help nail down the issue. And it sounds like on Normandy, maybe there is something, but like, go deep on the pipes and tell me.
No, I think you're doing
I
a
don't
job.
understand pipes.
No,
Wait,
but
but the denormity thing was from 2017. We've always talked about this Living Shoreline.
part of it, when we got into it, everybody wanted certain things, and some of the things were billed earlier on as cheaper, and I'm going back on council a number of years, and then when they showed up, the sticker price went up considerably, and that becomes a problem, because when you're sitting down and saying, okay, what do we do next? That's what we always should be thinking about here. What do we do next?
Yes.
What is the first thing? Like, I've encouraged this body, and I encouraged the historic commission the same way when I was in council, to keep up the prioritized list, to keep talking to the council. And if something doesn't move forward, it's not a negative statement, it's just we need to keep
Right.
reminding them that this is
And we
what we
did.
still think is top.
I mean, did it in our annual report, right?
I mean, we're doing Grange, right? Grange is going forward.
I believe so.
But
And that was
Grange
a
is
huge.
going
those
forward
were all-
on against the recommendation from
Well,
this
your
council.
chair, when I was on this body, your chair shared the information you complained about, and he didn't share it with the body. And Ralph and I got into a major unpleasantry because I provided the information for you and he didn't share it with you because he was an abutting owner that had a particular agenda. Okay, so the reason he didn't share with you is not very pleasant. The other thing is that the amount of, impervious cover over there in my head is very minor compared to the other problems we have in town. And you think about the number of acres of paved street we have. So, you gotta look at it and say, okay, one of the key problems is that bulkhead is. And we gotta get to that. We gotta get to the bulkhead at Grange before it collapses and we have more problems. But that being said, every day it's always a question. We got the street sweeper in town. I fought the street sweeper for 10 years, 15 years. When I got up, they threw me off council. Guess what? That was, I don't know, 400, I don't know how much the street sweeper was, I don't know, Brian, but it's not a cheap thing, and you gotta make your decisions. What do we do next? I would not have bought the street sweeper. I
Right,
can
but-
guarantee you that.
I think we're getting a little off topic here about this newspaper, but.
So I,
Well, about
and
mine.
and maybe I'm seeing it as like just a fresh set of eyes. I'd like to kind of harness. To me, stormwater management seems like a gargantuan topic. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand what can we do to take steps, whether it's us directly or through the green team educating at the grassroots level. Versus going up, through the governing body with a document or a position that says this. If we're gonna stand by one thing this year, it's this one thing. And we're not gonna actually talk about, like, the other things we might talk about, but we're only gonna put our effort into this one thing, because if we don't fix it. there's-
Well, it's
you know what I
also
mean?
mandated with the new MS4 permits, so it is brought down from the state that we had to improve and our stormwater management and our ordinance and become compliant on that.
I think we did that,
Yeah, to the basic bare minimum, right? And so,
but we're compliant.
yeah, I know, I'm just informing him so
The
that he's
challenge-
aware of that it comes grassroots, but also comes top
Yeah,
down too.
I'm very frustrated with DEP because they have a lot of cram downs. Where they show up and say, do something. First of all, they waste their money writing an ordinance instead of just saying, here's what we can do. When I was on council, we spent $25,000 on the stormwater management, but we had to mirror the state's rules, right? If we didn't mirror the state's rules, they wouldn't approve it. And I'm sitting there going, could I just spend the 25,000 on real physical infrastructure so that we actually improve the water quality instead of making another paper document that's gonna waste
Mhm.
resources?
Can I talk about paper documents? That's
Sure.
part of my council update. It's a good segue. So I met with Nick Perchinsky since our last meeting, and it was a great conversation. And the thing that was the most notable to me is we're talking about these documents. And I said, what I would like to do is get a list of, I think I've shared this, a list of all the documents environmentally related that the town should have. What's the pace that they need to be renewed, how much they cost, and start feathering that in the budget. So if the ERI is every 10 years and it's 20 grand, let's set aside $2,000 a year. If there's a mechanism to do that, reserve it. So at the end of 10 years, we have the money set aside and we can pay for it. I'm like, what's the schedule? And during that conversation, he started pulling these documents off the shelf. And they were underlined and noted and highlighted, and I was happy, but surprised. And he said, so we talked about it, and he said, these documents are the best way to communicate priorities to me and to my department. So instead of, like, what happens to him is people call and say, hey, there's flooding on this street, go fix that. And he talked about, sort of having to send his staff running in lots of directions. And it's a little bit more effective from his point of view to have a idea of stormwater management, sort of best practices or all the rules and so on in a document. And then that's how it's communicated to him, and he can best decide the best way to execute that plan across the whole town, rather than trying to run in a bunch of different directions. And I think that's a great idea, and I think that the EC would be a great body to sort of be the keeper of records of, like, what are all those documents we're starting to talk about, or we talked about ERI today. But having that list and keeping them in front of Nick and the governing body and the borough administrator seems like a smart move to me. I don't know what the appetite is, but I think that would be well received. I mean, certainly for Nick, that gets your priorities in that document that he is using on a day-to-day basis.
And so are you asking us to compile that stormwater and all those other environmental documents into like a big plan, like that what we want as stormwater?
So I have a list. So the things that he uses are the master plan is probably that's probably outside the EC.
Planning
But the
board.
master plan, the ERI, tree inventory, stormwater. And then I added tonight mapping and water story, but just like, what are there things that I'm missing?
In that list, when you say stormwater, what's
Like a
incorporated?
water management plan.
Now, where does he get that from?
Didn't he have a breakdown of all the pipes and everything and how everything
He
flows?
has a lot of maps in our office,
Yeah.
and I I want to be respectful of his time. We probably met for 45 minutes. But he didn't show me a map of all the pipes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does have that.
I know at one meeting, he broke everything down about this and this and this and how everything goes.
I'll put it this way, if one exists, he has it.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
And I was just, another thing I was just gonna say is, I get it, and Nick is great, he's so very knowledgeable, he makes time, he came to the ALS, meeting we had at the Literal Society. But shouldn't this also, I mean, Nick is engineering and DPW, right? I mean, but shouldn't stormwater and all these issues be on the forefront of every single decision that's made in town? Right, so even the 21 Fairhaven Road, like, that is right on the, like, shouldn't this be part of that discussion? Shouldn't,
Yeah,
like,
he's using that stormwater management plan when the DPW is involved.
right, I'm saying, but that's when the DPW
They
is
do
called
planning.
on, but I'm saying from a larger council perspective and like governing body, right? I mean, shouldn't. And so like, yes, it's great for Nick, who's also very knowledgeable about this and understanding about this, but I'm just wondering. And maybe that's something we can talk about, whether we get these materials for him, but I think. Oftentimes we come into trouble when these issues are not brought to the table at the beginning, right? And then we're trying to compensate or go back in time about that.
So I'm not sure what you're asking, but I'm not an expert on stormwater. I've lent lots of money to stormwater systems, but I'm not an expert in them.
Sure.
And I'm not in a position to look at a project and say, this is a violation of the stormwater management plan. That's what the DPW is for. That's what Nick is for.
Okay,
I think my role and our role is to make sure that Nick has a good one. That it's fresh and that it complies and that it reflects the priorities that we have as a town, as an EC, as a governing body. That's what I think, and
Sure.
then give it to him.
that's fine, but then invite Nick to the council and inform people about the importance of stormwater, right? And how do you get that to the larger public, right? Or how do you, like, you're not an expert on stormwater, that's fine. I mean, a lot of people aren't here either, but we know that we are mandated, but we also, it's a requirement. It's what we have to do as a coastal community, right? And so I think that this, just because you're not an expert, but you need to know that it's so important for every decision you make on council, whether you agree and push something through, or you ask questions about it or not. And so I think that that's the importance, right? When we talk about education, everybody needs to know how important these issues are.
Is,
That is
if you
on.
sit on council, there's a lot of, us, like the police department and maintenance of the fields, so environmental may be the top of our heads. But the people who play baseball worry about those fields and want to fertilize those fields, so that could be in conflict with us. And who wins in that game? I can't tell you definitively.
But I guess what I'm, as a fresh set of eyes, what I was trying to get at is when I come in, I'm looking for kind of those artifacts, like maybe what Nick has. And to me, like I said, stormwater seems like such a big and important topic, and we're by the waterway, so it makes it even more important. But I guess that's what I'm looking for. Is it our role to produce something that is like a strategic or it could just start off as like, best practices. It could start off as, to your point, John, when we start looking at, we were already doing the police department, the community center, the next step is to redo the fields and redo the park and redo the basketball court.
Sure.
So, when someone gets involved in that, like, what should they go reference to say, are we doing it the right way?
Right, and or.
Did they reference?
Or should they,
Would they reference the Rutgers study? Would they what would they reference, that they're?
or ask for recommendations or opinions, feedback from us, or from the Shade Tree Commission, or anything that's knowledgeable about importance about impermeable surfaces, rain gardens, native plants, shade, a bunch of different things that happy to work, so that it's not
It
just.
does feel like there's certain disconnects. The example obviously is this project at the end of Fairhaven Road. I don't think there's one road representative from the Environmental Commission that's been,
Nor green team,
or green team that's been appointed to that
or
group.
education, or environmental.
And that just feels like a massive opportunity missed. I was in the planning board meeting as with Sean. We are redoing, and this goes to planning board update. The last master plan was done in 91. It was reexamined in 2016. we're up, it's been 10 years, we're up, and I was like, we have to make sure that the environmental commission is a part of this conversation. I think that this group, for whatever we've been trying to work out what we are, we feel, I think, a little left out of the conversation, or a little like cut out of the conversation. I think it's a huge opportunity missed to not have anybody on that
So
Fairhaven Road
do
committee.
we know, do people know if, people from the green community applied?
Mhm.
We do, okay.
Mhm.
I'm
Well,
not.
I think that's a good point, but
Yeah.
either way, I think it's a good point. that
But
we
yeah,
don't
either way, I
know.
mean, whether you
That's
apply or
weird.
not, like having a liaison or having.
No,
a
it's weird,
representative,
I think it's weird.
It's,
Yeah,
Yeah, so
cause it's
I'll,
open space.
I'm gonna check that before I ask the mayor.
Yeah,
Maybe
totally
he said-
fine. I know for a fact that people have, yes.
So that's a good point, I'll ask.
So those are the types of situations that I think that are just. They just keep happening, and we're looking at things in retrospect and being like, oh, the green team or the EC could have weighed in there. You just,
We're supposed to be.
it's supposed to be, and
as
like
an
removing the
EC,
silos would
We're
be
supposed to
probably.
be providing environmental recommendations.
We're designated from the state of New Jersey, right? Like having an environmental commission is,
Yeah.
it is from the state of New Jersey, so. We are an extension of the state. I understand that we are the bottom, we are just doing what we do to get by from those. I'm very passionate around the fact that we should not be doing the bare minimum that gets us through the regulations of the state. We are a
Which
coastal
is what we're
community.
doing for stormwater.
Yeah,
That's what
we should be the people that the state looks to have these types of.
And our surrounding communities are doing
They
great
are.
things
you're-
and
Rumsden, or, you know,
And it just feels like maybe they have a better seat at the table. If for some reason there's
no appetite.
no appetite, stigma against it, I think that just needs to be done. And, you know, the EC needs to be like heavily incorporated into these conversations a little bit more. You know, it's not just deer mitigation, that's a town. But these are important aspects that I don't think a lot of people.
So,
No.
okay, and I mean, I think everything you guys have said makes a lot of sense, so like you said, something you said that made sense to me was like, we provide that point of view. Coming back to stormwater, are we, are we the experts in the town in that they should, like, the council members should come to us for counsel, for advice?
The expert
Or is there
technically is
like a-
Nick Portensky, he's our stormwater coordinator for this town, but,
for policy, but for the
But for-
environmental piece,
yeah.
like adding in like rain gardens or
Mhm.
things you can do in your lawn. Like the piece where we can bring in the people, not the, engineer, but what can you do on your own, like that educational, additional environmental piece to add to the engineering part.
Well, I guess I'm, and that, okay, that helps. I think earlier I said, I was kind of splitting it up in it's more, could be more than two ways, but one is like the grassroots educating the people of the town. And the other is being involved in things like 21 Fairhaven Road.
But I think,
I think they are slightly different ways of engaging.
yes, I think less me, truly myself, this group at this table of these people are the most qualified people to be weighing in on those, just from their backgrounds, their education, like you've got right here
Okay.
an incredible group of people. I don't think that the town incorporates this group enough into those conversations. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm learning a lot, but truly, it has felt like we've got the most educated group. For some reason, they're not involved or incorporated.
Well, so I think the way to communicate that though is through a stormwater management plan, through an ERI.
Totally paper.
Right, you know, saying to me, oh, we need to have 4 pipes at 21 Ferry, you know.
But
What am I gonna do with that? Am I just gonna chime that in?
But
In
I think that
when it's
people,
about the ordinance?
the people that need it will, right? I guess that's what I'm trying to think of, like, I'm trying to understand, some of the frustrations I can sense from the past. And use something like 21 Fairhaven Road as something that's in our future.
Yes,
And so if that group of people, and let's say none of us were involved, or the new team or anyone else were involved, is there a document they can pick up that would at least start the
A
conversation?
playbook of any sort.
Maybe, yeah, like recommendations. I mean, you gave a very specific example about rain gardens and things we can do like on our own lots. I feel like that's much bigger right now. It's a park. It's literally bigger, but it's also on the coastline and there's a lot more involved there. So, it might be that we need a very specific tailored point of view, a white paper on that property. Like that would make sense to me. This is how this property should be developed, or this is how we think you should consider developing this property, given like it's gonna be on the coast, the living coastline that you're trying to recreate there, the bulkhead that's already broken and. So I guess that's kind of what I see as an opportunity for me coming into here, is just trying to help us coalesce a lot of great ideas and find a way to engage and communicate that with other people. And if you don't want to write, like, again, it's a lot of work, but I think we need to tease it out, like, what's the right way to engage, and maybe this is a good example of that. Well, I'm open to others.
If you guys give me a document or something, a white paper, a thought, I will give it to the council. I will make sure that they all see it. But I don't think I can say, I'm not an expert enough in stormwater or these things to sort of override what Nick might be doing. And then the other thing I would like to do again is figure out what the list of all the reports we need, and I'll find a way to fund them.
Echoes back to one of the first things I asked when I joined, do we have a strategic plan? Do we have a prioritized?
Well, the
list?
ERI essentially
Yeah.
functions in many ways, if we write it correctly, right? It really
I
represents.
don't know if that's a prioritized list in there from what I read. I'm talking about an annual that could be budgeted, that we could say, hey, 4 pipes are gonna cost. That's our, this year, we're focusing on 4 pipes.
That's what Shade Tree does. Natural area, pardon me.
Mhm.
They have
Do we
3
have
asks.
that process on this?
We've just had our annual report of the projects that have been like the most important, and that's kind of what's been brought up to council every year, and it's kind of been built on that, and it's, a lot of ideas we've had, and maybe one gets to the table, but I mean, that's kind of been our summary. I know we've tried to pull together budgets and whatnot, but in the past too, there hasn't been budget, so it's been, we can have the ideas, but there hasn't been budget for it, for certain things. So we just kind of have our list. I think honestly, with the updated ERI is a good place to start putting in a lot of these priorities. I know, I'm pretty sure Romson does it. And there's like what their priority, like, here's some actions that we'd like to work on that should be focused on. And I think that's a really good place for us to be. Like, we have all these topics that we're constantly discussing. They should be in there. So it's physically written down. I don't know if I was gonna read it again because people don't read anymore. That's why I feel like conversations are very important to have, or easily digestible material, because again, time to do all this is, tough with all of us. And again, who is gonna be, I mean, I'm sure Nick would probably read something we give to him, but who else is gonna be actually digesting and reading stuff unless you're like in it?
Right, that's
The council would have to be briefed on it and would have to be knowledgeable, because we're basically telling them how to spend the money the right way.
No, but only if the mayor sends out that agenda and that literature sets the agenda, right? So if it doesn't get on the agenda, nobody reads that.
Fair, but
I
it
can't
seems
think of
odd to me
anything
that
that we
stormwater issues wouldn't be on the agenda, considering the flooding at Colonial Court, the overflow of McCarter Pond, like the
It's
nuisance flooding.
piecemeal, right? It's piecemeal and it's targeted, but it's not holistically looked at on what can we do better.
So
This is only going.
so that's my point. Who does that? Do we do that?
Discussed and talked about some different ways to do that, but if it doesn't become a larger, or we're not called to the larger table of that conversation.
Well, I'm telling you, if we put.
I think we
together
are the larger conversation.
Yeah.
The council deals in specific issues, spending money and fixing problems. I think we deal in the big picture, like we are dealing with.
We have no power. We are we cannot set the agenda. We cannot put into, we have to get council to approve actions. We have to get the mayor to put it on the agenda so that council can vote on it.
But the vote, like, I guess that's the point, like,
Yeah.
to vote on what, right? So we have to
Right.
put something in front of them to say, this is what we want you to do.
And
This is the action we want you to take.
okay.
We're advocating, like.
Yeah.
We
we're the
had 2
advocacy.
years, right? Didn't we accepted the bare minimum stormwater regulation. And we had a year or 2 years to make amendments to that, to make it more robust.
Did you give a list of amendments?
Yeah, we had.
Again, some of us don't agree with
Pre-election action
Some of us don't agree
paper.
with that, Kelly. Remember that.
Exactly.
Just remember, don't sweep us all into the same
I know,
bucket.
I'm just saying.
Because Perth Amboy has combined sewers dumping into the river. And how much can Fairhaven clean up its water at what cost to the residents? When Perth Amboy and Bayonne and Jersey City are
And we are
dumping combined
apples and
sewage.
oranges to Perth
No,
Amboy and
no, because it's the same water source, and again, we can help. But at some level, I don't wanna make it difficult for people in town, and again, I don't like heavily engineered solutions, because one of the biggest, one of the biggest carbon producers in our society is concrete.
Mhm.
So why can't we use bioswales and grass as opposed to a hard concrete
Maybe
structure, which is gonna be brought here by diesel, which is gonna have a tremendous carbon footprint? So we're arguing about what's the right technology. I'm on the low tech end of here. I want an easy, low tech stormwater buffering,
Which
lawn
can be done,
discharge,
yes.
and other people want giant drywalls. I
That
don't
will
want
be in the stormwater management plan that
Yeah.
Nick reads when he's gonna look at a project.
Right, but we don't agree here.
His hands are dirty.
That's reality.
I agree
But I
on
think
living
that's-
shorelines and like low,
Yeah,
you know.
We agree on some stuff, but that's important, because we're not getting to the council, because we don't agree right here yet.
Well, so I'm gonna take that in a second, but just coming back to what you said, so the amendments we did share.
What amendment? I mean, we shared, yes, we shared that white paper of what Clean Ocean Action, and who else wrote that with them?
Water Institute.
The Water
Throw
Institute.
that was the throw.
But was that wasn't passed by the AC, like as a formal vote to go to the council?
To make recommendations,
Yeah, I don't recall.
that was back in
specific.
2018,
I don't remember, honestly.
but we had. The idea was, let's pass the bare minimum, because we were under the deadline, because we waited forever to do that, and we were gonna be non-compliant. So pass the bare minimum with the idea that within one calendar year, we would. Make it more stringent, correct? Am I recollecting that, right?
I don't think that was my understanding. My understanding what came to my table was this thing that had a lot of dry wells and stuff like that, and I was like, no, 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 no. And I thought it was excessively hardscape focused. And I think that was what was one of the challenges.
Which hardscape, like the Grange project?
No, I'm talking about when you're talking about stormwater management, somebody's doing an expansion on a house, they want to manage stormwater. I want more discharge, rain gardens, and minimal
Mhm.
structures, right? The ordinance that came to us had dry wells.
I
don't think it wasn't an ordinance.
Barbera was working on to.
I don't believe it was an ordinance,
It
was
was
it?
something
We wouldn't have
work in progress.
suggested
We didn't suggest an
We were
ordinance,
suggesting a low tech.
suggestions, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like all,
recommendations.
yeah, it wasn't supposed to be an ordinance,
It
it
was
was just
not.
supposed to be just like.
It was a
low
white
tech
paper on
recommendations.
recommendations.
Yeah, the
What-
problem is recommendations in my experience turn into you shall. As opposed to you may, you know what I'm saying? So when I looked at that thing and it was way too hard.
Well, it never came back on our agenda.
We can put it on it, let's look at
Yeah.
it again and make sure we convey to the council what we think we should do.
So there is, so again, sorry, just summarizing, in 2019, there should be some document that summarizes our recommendation to be above the minimum for stormwater management.
We didn't have a document. We personally did not come up with a document.
Right.
The state, we were given from like the bare minimum, which we had to adopt. That was a document. And then we had a white paper on other recommendations to go up to the next level. And that's all through Sustainable Jersey too, because we could have gotten more points for that,
Mhm.
application to adopt a more stringent. And there were different levels. It wasn't all or one. It was it could be piecemeal.
But I think that what would have been good, look, I
Yeah.
was on the EC then, so I was
Yeah.
20 years of myself. What would have been good is we've digested all this information, we've compromised among ourselves. This is how we think this should be implemented. And either amend it or get it into a plan that Nick uses. I think that would have been effective. As opposed to, here's a white paper from Clean Ocean Action. Well, does that mean that's what our residents want? Does it work? Because per fanboy, like, I don't know. And so I think it'd be super powerful to get stuff into Nick. As a council member, I'm gonna defer to Nick. If he tells me XYZ on stormwater, I'm gonna say, yeah, that, unless it's something glaringly obvious. He's an expert day to day. That's what he works on.
Okay, so he's appointed by the borough to be our coordinator, right? But is this also something that we are trying to ask him to do more and above and beyond, because we think that as a coastal town, we should do this? Is this supposed to be coming from us, or is this supposed to be coming from the larger body?
I think that if this group took on those reports and communicated priorities, that's what Nick is gonna go by. And
By
we did-
our recommendation?
Does the council have to approve like an ERI?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's your
I think it will be
document.
adopted and it makes sense, it should be adopted.
A resolution to adopt.
So that might be a time where there's some compromise possibly.
Mhm.
You know, I love the environment. I knocked on 500 doors. Not everyone is passionate about the environment in town as we are. Like,
Right,
it's just a
but
reality.
are they passionate about water access and, I mean, river
Yeah, but I'm
views
just saying
and
it's a
everything
broad
else?
range.
Right, I'm just saying, you're right, but you know, the environment, when you put it one way, compared to like access to water and fishing and crabbing and boating and everything else,
I understand.
you know, like.
If I think about the number of hours I spent on town council over 15 years, I can assure you that the environmental discussion was not the major topic. I
Right,
spent
but
a
if
lot of
there's a
time talking about.
Fish
brush-
kill in the
No,
water,
I'm just
then
telling
you
you,
better believe you're gonna
brush
hear from everybody.
collection,
Garbage.
Fairhaven Field.
Which brush
garbage.
collection is part of
I
stormwater.
got it, I'm just saying that it's not, the main, it wasn't, by the way, the discussion of brush was not about the environmental impact. It was about, why is Mrs. Smith's, leaves not picked up, and what's the problem on Third Street, and oh my God, we have to always balance into our heads that not everybody is where we are.
I get it, but as more and more of these storms that's another thing, right? We wanted a map of where this flooding was happening. People have been putting,
So tell me, what does it take to get the map? And I'll get it in the budget or.
well, is there a directory, right? When people call in and say, hey, there's flooding on my street and I live so-and-so, like just the frequency and the direct location would be super helpful for people to understand.
How do we do that?
I mean, who,
You mean
Call
like
complaints.
if Betty Ann
Yeah.
wrote down every time someone complained about flooding?
yeah,
And
Someone
that-
that called on the council last night about flooding
Yes.
on, I mean.
Someone
I-
called
I
in
walked by.
It happens a lot.
Is it?
well, that's having a recorded log and geographic pinpoints, and you can see the heat map, right? The hot areas where those are, and then that can help and should help guide governing body, and decision making as well. Then and the more and more the frequency that happens, that almost kind of prioritizes that.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, I'm gonna play
Yeah.
devil's advocate a little bit.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing is you want Betty Ann to keep track with a map on every time someone calls in, and then the council's supposed to digest that map.
No,
Okay,
But-
well, tell me what that guy missed.
I'm saying if she keeps a log and just put it in a spreadsheet, right? And if we see that and that becomes a living document, right? And that becomes a living visual. Think about GI, like people adapt better to visuals and understand it. And every time you can see and click on it, it's easy to make a map with that information, right, John?
You gotta then get to the actual locations, but I mean, if you get repeated access,
So
sure.
let's talk about
Like
process.
Get the address.
Right?
Let's talk about process. So am I gonna, as a councilman, am I gonna call Betty Ann and say, hey, I want you to do this? I
But
absolutely.
don't you think that the borough, the council thinks it's important to keep on with
Yes,
that?
but we don't tell the staff what to do.
Right?
That's the borough administrator. Too
Sure.
many chefs in the kitchen, is that the phrase? It's not right for me to call the chief of police or this or that. Like, I was very hesitant to sit down with Nick. I was respectful of his time. What I think we do is we put in a document that in the stormwater management plan, we want to try to monitor the hotspots. And then that is maybe passed by the council, gets to the borough administrator, and the borough administrator gives it to Nick and says, this is important. And then Nick looks in there and says, oh, we need to keep track of that. And they figure out, is it Betty Ann? Is it Nick? Is it something else?
Brian, I think if you're overthinking it, I think it can easily just be like a Google form and say, hey, you have flooding, just tap it in there, and that can just go to a document that people can access.
But I can't just tell Betty Ann.
I'm not asking you to tell Betty in. I think it's like, just, hey, look, there's a QR code, you got flooding right there. And this is not, we don't have to like create this right now. I'm just thinking, don't you think the town would want this
I
information?
think the question is, do we know or do we have a process of addressing this problem? There's two different things, and I think if you talk to the chief of police and you talk to Nick and Rich, they probably can help us identify some of the problematic spots, right? And then say, okay, so what's the strategic plan? What's the game plan to address them? And what's the time horizon, right? And then that's the prioritization piece, right? I mean, yeah, I think we know where flooding occurs. I think you already threw out two already, and
It's not a big place,
Yeah.
and we could be wrong, but we won't, or we may not be comprehensive, but we won't be wrong. You know what I mean? Like, we'll know where there is flooding, but it may not be every, part of the streets that's flooded. I guess we've been on this for over 30 minutes and I think it's been helpful. I'd like to just get to a point where we're taking an action for going forward on stormwater management. I'm open to, what I'm hearing is kind of what I kind of came in with this understanding is there's a lot of ideas, but there's not like a kind of a galvanizing, like, this is how we need to move forward. So I'm happy to like kind of lean in and help drive that. But I don't have any of the information. I'm not, I'm very much a novice in this. So what,
I think
What
that
would
we
be
should,
helpful?
I think that the group that's getting together, from what it sounds like, a paper trail is the most effective way to get in front of council. So let's try it. If nothing's been working so far, in our opinion, let's play it and do it. The three of us will sit together. We can pull out some top highlighted things. You guys can vouch for it. We can put that into the ERI. That can be the living
That's our
document.
priority document.
That's the priority document. It has all the background information as well as the top level stuff that we need to move forward quickly. And I don't think that the idea of focusing on one project a calendar year or a year is a bad thing. I mean, I think it's better than nothing so that we can actually start to, like, the living shoreline. It's actually like probably a risk at this point, like a legal, almost nearly a legal matter. I think that should be I think we should agree that maybe we should focus on figuring that out, like in the short term. And what that looks like, we would shape it.
And a lot of these things are very related.
Exactly.
Living shoreline is.
So how does that,
Critical
what does the
to
ecosystem
stormwater.
look like within that? And how can we tie it together and say, like, once we've figured, it's not necessarily whack-a-mole, but from a positive light, like, once we're doing this, let's tie in all of the places around that. But let's figure out a way to lead that conversation, because I agree. I don't think that this group is getting a seat at the table. Hard stop, period. I've seen the conversations that Josh had, that they're, like, the surprise that there was a committee that was meeting. Everybody was like, wait, whoa, what's going on? So for some reason, it's falling on deaf ears. Can we just agree that we're going to start submitting paper documents to make sure that it doesn't fall on deaf ears? Because it really should be the priority of this coastal town. Stormwater management, all of those things that intertwine. You won't have Fairhaven without any of that stuff. So we can drive the conversation, but we need your support and advocacy
Yeah,
out there.
of course, I love the idea of paper trail. And so I'm gonna add on one thing, so think of how powerful it is, two scenarios. I call Betty Ann and say, I want you to keep hotspot on that, yeah. Or we get it in a stormwater management plan, which is adopted by the council, goes to Nick through the borough administrator. And then if that's not happening, it's a much different conversation to reach out to the borough administrator and say, hey, stormwater management plan at page 63 says we're supposed to be doing this. You know, what are we doing to move towards that direction? That's a much different process, I think, much more effective than, like, it's an abundance of good ideas. We're overflowing with good ideas, but they're sort of just scattered and it's hard to corral them.
So we'll just be really specific in the ERI about what we need in order to manage this.
Mhm.
Just be really, and that's the paperwork that should be adopted. That should be the gold
That's part,
standard.
that's a part of it. It gets adopted in the master plan.
Exactly.
That's
That's
a
what happened
great-
last time.
Great way.
That's what happened, the last version of it.
But with the living shoreline, I mean, I go back, I was in the team of what to Normandy, right? And there's riprap there, and I need to understand, you'd say it's not a compliance problem, I think it's an issue about how we want to long-term stabilize the bank. And I'm, so it's not like we're sitting here and there's some issue that's changing, it's been that way for 50 years, probably 75 years, but it's eroding and
Getting worse, well,
we want to manage this over the long game, and I think that, again, my initial remembrance, I have to go back, I'm getting old, but it was like, I think it wasn't Littoral, but it was one of the ones out of Sandy who came in and we could get it for $50 and volunteers, and it was, and then it suddenly went to $50,000, and so there's been a lot of scope creep and stuff like that, so the question we have to say.
Everywhere.
No, but we have to also, the scope creep is different, because that's saying we were gonna have a flower pot and a geranium, and now suddenly we're gonna have a bonsai garden, this is a whole different game, so we need to go back and look at it. I don't really know right now.
The last version of it was not encroaching much into the water, more so just really helping to stabilize
Right.
the above mean high water area.
Yeah, I thought it was strategic planning and stuff like that, but
And
then it then went off,
including But
Down
then
there.
included rain garden ground down there, but then they just recently put sidewalks down,
Yeah.
so that doesn't help, or. And so, just understanding, and I guess it's just getting it again in front of council, right? With the long term.
so if if someone could share that with me from, I put down here 2017, that was the shoreline budget with ALS and Nick. Listed.
And this is the grant for Shum too.
Okay,
I have all the documents.
if you could, wouldn't mind sharing that with me, we could resurrect that. It sounds like that's maybe a first on a list, priority list, we start to pull together.
Probably be supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So that's one action we'll take out of this. And then it sounds like so the subcommittee on the ERA, you guys are happy to bring this topic into that.
It should be.
And try it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, but I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think the point of with ER is getting our top priorities in there. And all the environmental, like, you know, whatever the,
Extrapolated from there.
yeah, extrapolating from that, and that should be definitely put into the ERI for sure.
We can do like an executive summary at the beginning, so
Yes.
people will read that and they don't have to.
And I think, and I was thinking of that too, executive summary, here's all the things that we've updated this version, and then here's this extra piece here that we've added this time to take a look at, here's some of our priority.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think that's great. Perfect.
Thank you. The rain garden project is next on the agenda.
Well, this was, stems back from our Forest Service that wanted to have an easy two-step, per year and to actually check things off the list. And so we've had that Rutgers study for quite some time, and one of the rain gardens, that we wanted to put in with our budget, for the AME church right there, we were thinking that might be a good project because of everything that's been so amenable with the new police station being right there and in their parking lot, that it would be just a great way to thank them and then also to help the environment around there. So Anna and I have spoken, I know we have not yet spoken with AME yet.
It
We
sounds
wanna
like
get them on board.
It sounds like there may be a grant, I don't know if you've heard about, but there might be some landscaping money coming to that area generally, once the police station is wrapped up. So they're doing a cleanup on the 22nd there, which is a Saturday at AME, some light landscaping. I think it would be a good opportunity to look and figure out where the position could be, but I think we should wait until the fall, once they know when that's all wrapped up and once there may be a grant coming to actually, like, make that.
A grant from where?
I don't have any of that information. I just kind of spit this out to someone and I'd heard that there was some money that they could pull from for that. So if that's the case, then we should push for a rain garden there. Like, we'll just kind of be heightened to it. Because definitely, that's the place to do it. It's been recognized by Rutgers. So. Keep you posted, so.
Is there, and just the history, is there, how did we get to the AME and not any of the other 12 or 13 locations that were in the report?
Because some of the locations have already, Acme is null and void, it was before the construction. Some of the other locations, we wanted to do McCarter, that's being used and there's some other iterations. And so we just thought with the Nativity, Church Nativity was an issue too, we thought about that, but we just thought with the way that construction's been going right there, it'd be just a nice way to bring, payback. Do something back for that organization.
And is in like the other borough properties, like the firehouse?
They're not,
looked
yeah,
at?
but those aren't on the report, right?
It was the one with the firehouse?
Was there one in the firehouse?
For sure.
But there's not public, it's private, it's private.
Firehouse is
The firehouse is
private.
private.
By department.
And. Oh, so AME is public?
No, it's not.
No, you have to get
public,
permission.
But you
I
have to
guess,
get
right? The
permission.
fire company wanted to do it, they could
Yeah.
ask and say, hey, can you do it there?
Right.
But I'm not gonna follow this.
And then the new, like the new police station community center, is there already plans to incorporate some of these ideas into
I don't know,
that plan?
that's true.
There's a large retention basin in the parking lot at Fairhaven Fields that may be handling some of the Church of the Nativity's water, if I remember correctly. So if you look at that, that's a spec
retention basin, not that I like it, but it's what it was
Oh.
designed by the DEP, and that's.
Yeah, nativity we already looked at and it was gonna be too much of an issue to try to do something. I think it was in the right of way that where we wanted to actually put the rain
But
gardens.
by that retention basin, I did speak to somebody at Nativity and they were thinking themselves of Nativity they've done a lot of good work and they put,
Anything along the edge
they
of
are
that.
thinking about that. They put in a whole native plant garden on the outside of Nativity. And so Kathy Hendricks is very on it. And I've spoken to her about putting some more plantings in that last.
Yeah, if you line that,
Yeah.
I mean, that
and they're
helps
doing-
slow the flow into that too, so.
So I can see a stormwater management plan saying, you know, these are the Rutgers sites, you know, we want to work towards putting a rain garden as minimally possible in 1 year, or whatever.
Yeah, I guess and like I said, fresh eyes reading it, you know, when I look at the fire department and how much of their lot is paved. You know, Acme, how much it's paved, Nativity, how much it's paved, and I compare it to the AME, it's not paved. There's just a couple of sidewalk pieces and the rest of it, they have a gravel parking lot, right?
Mhm.
So I was trying to understand like how, to me, it would seem like all those paved areas that Rutgers highlighted would rise to the
Acme
top.
was prior to, it was the old Acme. So it's the new Acme, so, but yes, I mean, we kind of came off of it. Because some of us are also in the historic association and Fairhaven Farmers Market and Buy Hall, and so we just thought. We can collaborate and it's a collaborative effort between the AC, the Historic Association, Farmers Market, and just kind of get back to the community, this church. Because it's right there as well. We are trying to not prioritize locations, but we're just trying to like check things off the list. We have not touched any of those locations. Since it's been published 7 years ago.
Okay,
Norwood School, Raven and Peach, those are the two rain gardens that exist. In on larger pieces of land, not private, you know, residential land.
okay,
Very nice.
cool, all right, that's helpful. And then I guess with that. There was a note, or there was a comment in earlier minutes, maybe Anna, you brought it up about having funds for the management of it going forward.
Yeah, once they're built, from my understanding, it's kind of like a hot potato of who manages it, so, personally, I think we should do less of them, but and to manage them, so if we identified X spots, we should commit to 4 and just have them maintained instead of building new ones over time. I think that would probably be a better way, you know, they're helpful, but they're also not falling.
But this is where you have it on private land like a church and you get buy-in from a church and then they have these cleanup of days. And it becomes a community event and there's the maintenance. Right, yeah.
Someone with the school, I mean, they have the rain garden.
They have their team, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
it's just the Raven and Peach one where it just, there's no maintenance.
Hmm.
Because that is public property. Borough property. Borough, yeah.
So is it DPW that's going through and making sure that that
They
storm
did,
drain is
it's already
cleared out, or?
DPW was there, I walked past it a few weeks ago and they cleaned it up.
I thought the garden club at one point, like, tried to revitalize it, I think, 1 year. I don't know. It's not an annual thing now.
Okay, so rain garden project, so, is it, the two of you, someone is reaching out to AME next to
Yeah, we'll
gauge their interest?
yeah, and they're buying.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk to them on the 22nd over there.
June 22nd, okay. And then this kind of gets into the green team update, but just do you have a budget set aside in this year's funding for it already?
No. We have a budget for the EC that just,
It's
Sorry,
for-
the green
it's For
team.
the Anject dues.
Green Team doesn't have a budget, it's all part of the EC budget.
Yes, so, and I told it to you earlier today, so we have a budget of $4,500 for the year.
Right.
Would any of that, would that cover?
Ideally, we would like to have that covered, I mean, to be used, right? But we all have to be on the same page. With that.
Okay,
And it depends what else
So it's a
we wanna
possibility.
use our budget for.
Yeah.
Printing stormwater brochures is also part of a budget. So. We also in years past have gotten donations and, services that have been donated. So.
And that's something I will fight for is, I'm not an expert in a lot of those other stuff, so more management, for example, but budgeting, yes. Right, so I got the Shade Tree Commission money for, invasive species control in the budget this year, and I'm happy to, if there's good things that we're gonna do, and we're organized and pointed in the right direction, not right, in the same direction. I'm happy to advocate for that kind of stuff.
Cool, happy to move on.
Sure.
Deer mitigation has Gary's name next to it. Should we?
I mean, that's in council's hands now, isn't it? So
Yeah.
really, I don't think that's really a,
Talked to the mayor last week about it. And he is, talking to Rumson and Little Silver's mayors, if he hasn't done so already, to try to coordinate that the three towns, the peninsula, is doing it either at the same time or close to the same time. So I haven't heard of those conversations like yet, but that is something he's working on.
Cool. So, again, coming up to speed on things, I didn't see like I mean, I saw it in the notes, I saw that you guys had someone here, that same person went and presented to council. I think it would be helpful if we produced a recommendation the council adopts.
I agree.
We state the problem, we state, what ideas or solutions we consider, the expert, testimony from DEP, whatever. Capture that into some sort of memo, white paper that then goes to.
For deer mitigation?
Isn't that also in the annual report, and that's what we presented for the annual report?
I thought it was done.
I think it was pretty general. I think it was very specific.
Or maybe another one of the annual report was. I don't know, I feel like.
I thought we've done it.
I don't think I've already done this. We've brought it.
So where would I find it?
Let me check the annual report, it's on the annual report number 6. FHEC recommends council evaluate deer mitigation program options.
So they would evaluate, I think we have a point of view about what they should do, do we not?
Yeah.
So we should share that point of view.
I think it was though.
That was happening, right? Like Brian really did that.
pretty sure we already did that.
Yeah.
There's no paper though, there's no.
Right.
But that was when the DEP came and spoke and said this, we need a managed hunt.
Yes,
Yes.
they went through all the options.
Right,
For the whole town, it was
Right.
great,
right. I watched it on Zoom.
Yeah.
but I agree with Sean that something that says, I can go to the council, say that EC thinks this is what we should do. I think that would be great.
And that's not in there?
On the annual report, there was never like a specific memo, it was Brian Rice driving the DEP presentation at the council level, which happened. There was a separate memo in the annual report that Brian Rice, gave to the governing body in February or March. Deer mitigation was listed as like the 6th, priority, like it was on the list.
Saying that we should have a controlled hunt?
It says that, NDEP, Fish and Wildlife employees toward areas of fair and evaluate the borough's forest health relating to a deer overpopulation. They assess areas of fair and fields that can hold hunters and discuss hunting option programs. FHEC recommends that council evaluate deer mitigation program options.
Okay.
Should we just
And we can just
do a resolution
Right.
and put a memo together and send it to them?
and say we agree with the controlled hunt
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that it needs to be done.
Do we all?
We make a motion to that. right
Yeah.
now.
But think about like, should it be in the fall, the spring? Should it be just one weekend? Should it be?
No, the DEP said it can't just be 1 week.
Well, I'm saying, think
Right.
about the specifics, if you want it like a specific plan, and I could bring that and say, this is.
Right, but we are not
SC.
ones to do that.
I thought they were the guys.
Well, I think that's it. I think we want to say we're supportive of the deer mitigation plan because of the negative environmental impacts of the
Right.
wide population.
That's fine.
We suggest we're in agreement with what we heard about the mayor,
concur.
trying to coordinate the hunts. And the third thing is that we want supportive of what the DEP recommends. They're the professional
They're the-
experts.
They're the ones that
They're
have
the
done
ones.
it.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
we're recommending we follow through the fall hunt if that's what the DEP feels.
Whatever their program was, I was confident.
And also what the stable population should be, right?
For.
Yeah.
Because whatever the DEP feels the call has to go to is what's sustainable in the long
But
term.
now, if the mayor is waiting to talk to the other towns and get them on board, is there anything that's been in action already at the start of this, or is it
I
gonna?
haven't heard what the conversations were yet.
Okay, because that's just gonna be.
I don't think it's prohibited to have a coordinated effort. If the towns fall apart, then we still move forward with the DEP's recommendations, right?
Because they're the ones that they have, I don't know if it's grants or something, but they're the ones that help to pull together the actual plan. Like they have the template and they
Yes.
work with the
They
town.
And they do all the vetting and the.
Yes, they do all
licensing
that,
And
yes.
everything, it's
That's
not-
nothing we would do, that's thing.
They,
We do things like, it's gonna be on this day, or it's only gonna be on Saturday in the
But-
morning, or it's gonna be, so those are things that are within our purview. But yeah, once we tell them what we wanna do, they will implement it.
but they also give us recommendations. I mean, I don't think it's just a one and done per year. It's a,
Yeah, like, I think the recommendations, what I heard, the recommendations are, we think the hunt is the best versus,
Yeah.
birth control versus trapping versus, right? But I didn't hear them saying that, given your situation, you should do it in this spot, this frequently, down to this level.
That comes with the actual plan itself and getting into the weeds, like that, the whole presentation wasn't
Let's just buy
it was
it.
just, yeah, just buy in first and then we'd be working with.
So I'll just make a motion that we move forward with the Deer Call plan and that we're looking to the council to do it as soon as possible. Obviously, that's appropriate in the DEP
And take their.
process, what their recommendations are with regard to the deer management as to the ultimate size of the herd and also.
Did you get all that, Christie? Cause I want something,
Yeah, no, let's make a resolution. Do you want more details?
Second it.
You defer to the deer mitigation program due to the negative environmental impacts, and you defer to the NJDP and their
Their
recommendations.
expertise in the area of deer management as to the actual structure of the culling and the size of the herd. And also timing, what's the most appropriate time, and we're also supportive of the mayor's effort to coordinate
With other municipalities.
with other municipalities. However, we also think we can move forward if it doesn't turn out to be within a reasonable time.
because I think. or Time is of the essence too. I think if you miss, if you miss a season, you have to wait till next fall.
Plus we missed last year, so
Yes,
that's what.
and so I think it's like the
It took a year to
urgency.
get on the agenda. to
Yes.
Talk
Okay.
about it. Yeah, so,
we'll
yeah.
move it off the McCarter plan track.
Yes.
This should be a
I mean-
non-cost, a low-cost thing,
Mhm.
right, for the town to do, so the
Yeah.
budgetary
It's
constraint.
not a cost thing, it's
Mm.
all
Yeah.
coordination
Yeah.
and inertia
But I
and
also think it's,
priority.
I also think it's, you know, and I don't know, but I imagine you guys are very well versed in that conversation. You heard the presentation, you heard the other options. Council's now heard the same. I don't know that the wider public
No,
even
you need
knows
to
that
get
it's
buy-in and
a conversation that's happening. And when people find out that we're gonna start shooting deer in Fairhaven Woods, they're gonna be like, well, that's crazy, why are you doing that? So I think if there's if the EC is, it sounds like we're unified, which is nice, but at least we have hey, we've seen it, we endorsed it.
I
We
think that-
understand that there's other options that we considered. That went to council, they considered it, they've endorsed it, they've engaged the DEP, like at least it's it's the start of a conversation.
I think one of the things, maybe that's an opportunity for us to write up a one page, just saying why we supported this course of action.
Please.
So that the council doesn't have to take all the heat, but that we're trying to look at all the different aspects of the environment.
And I think that's really what's helpful. When I learned about it, the way you guys looked at it was very helpful to understand.
Yeah, and that should be posted, a month in advance of the hunt to say this is gonna happen. Everybody should understand that you have to make choices. And just the number of deer are way above what we can sustain.
Yeah, I asked the natural area shade tree, and I believe Brian can come to that meeting to support. I was sort of joking that I'm literally gonna have blood on my hands.
Yeah.
Right, so like, and people, the first reaction, and myself included, was what? And then you start to educate yourself and learn. It's like, well, unfortunately, there's no better option. So a paper like that would be great.
And then I don't know if we motion it, I mean, it's.
You made the
Yeah.
motion.
Did we get approval? Do we agree by acclamation? No, did we acclimate?
Got a second from him.
Any abstain? Any against? Okay, I will, work on drafting something and send it to you for review.
Thank you. I thought we were gonna send it to Gary since he's not here.
It's fine, he says, no, I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to communicate well, and also we don't want to leave the council hanging, right? And I think also communicate to the general public. You know, unfortunately, there's a lot of emotionality. It's not related to the real facts of what you have to do. And it's an unpleasant reality.
Yes.
But we don't have any wolves in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're bringing them back.
Never say
And,
never.
and we have a massive amount of fringe, which is Peter Love.
Good, all right, thank you. Next one, coming back, Kelly, green team update.
Yep, green team has been busy this spring. We did a lot of gardening and planting, starting with the native plant pollinator garden with Pickle School and the PTA there and the kindergarten and first graders. Which was great. And then we moved on to completing our Sustainable Jersey grant for the Third Street Trail Pollinator Garden. We haven't gone by and seen that garden and the education sign there. It really is spectacular. We had the ribbon cutting ceremony on Love Where You Live Day, our annual celebration of all things that are awesome and great in Fairhaven. Including a lot of the environment. We wanted to highlight the amazing work and efforts that multiple organizations and groups have done on the Third Street Trail by reclaiming that area, the trees. And also to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Fairhaven Fields, which is such a great story for this town. And so we thank you, Councilman Olson and Councilwoman Cole and Councilwoman Cott and Ellie. We had a great turnout from council who came and helped us cut that ribbon and celebrate all stuff that we put on. It was a wonderful, for those that came, I mean, thanks Jesse and Anna that came. I think it was very well intended. It was kind of really super sweet to see kids in fairy wings, like hopping around through the woods. There was nobody on screens. The library had this fantastic bee craft and bee books, and there was just wonderful things. We had stormwater clean ocean action there, composting, natural area, historic association, the firehouse, or the volunteers. It was just wonderful. It was a great afternoon, and the weather helped.
Weather was beautiful.
Yeah, those banditos was there, yeah, really good. Fortunately, the mariachi band did not come.
All
Um,
that talk about the
Yeah. But it was, the sign I think came out awesome, and DPW, I have to give them credit, they helped out tremendously getting the sign in and, getting that path ready for the event. Just saying, if we ever do that again, we need some wagons to help bring stuff back and forth. Yes, thank you. And just a better plan with the tables, because that was donated by the firehouse. There were some complications with that. So it's just, again, a little bit more support, make it more of a community event, not just a green team soul event, and I think that can go a long way, helping to publicize it, helping to get people there, helping to celebrate. Because there is a lot to celebrate in Fairhaven and the volunteers and people who put their time into it and the natural spaces we have. I mean, imagine Fairhaven without Fairhaven Fields. It'd be a completely different, town. And I think, and that's why it's so important too, to have people part of that conversation, see at the table at the 21 Fairhaven Road too. These are, decisions that are reach so much more than who lives here now, but for next generations, and doing it well and doing it right. And because, I mean, just seeing the kids build teepees in the past there, and it just is a wonderful resource to have that I think people take for granted. And there are some people that had never been to the Third Street Trail yet. And it was just wonderful, like, come see what Fairhaven has to offer. And this is just a part, and hopefully that will generate, it has generated, like, what's happening with the bird sanctuary. Let's get that next, right? And so just getting people on board.
Different location too. I think it's kind of nice and smart that you guys changed locations this year.
Right.
I think maybe we should, it's something to
Bicentennial Hall
consider.
has been getting, for all good reason, it's been getting a lot of attention. There is grant money that's gonna be fixed up, and that's wonderful. That was our original intent, doing it 3 years ago there. Bringing awareness to this area. And so now the Third Street Trail, there's more trails that want to be carved out. I talked to Mark Olson today. There's another Eagle Scout that wants to add on possibly to the pollinator garden. And so it just, it generates community involvement, interest.
In
and-
different aspects.
Yeah, so I thought it was just a wonderful day, so thank you. And we submitted that Sustainable Jersey grant, so we're done with that, and we had a booth about stormwater, what goes into our river at the Eco Fest in Rumson at Victory Park on June 1st. That I heard went wonderfully, talking about some other stuff that goes into our river, like construction dust, right? Like all that white dust from like AZAC trend that you go out there and you just see it there and it's like, well, it's not sawdust, it doesn't just go away, those are microplastics, right? So just thinking about some of this other stuff that goes into the river that people just don't realize and understand. And so that is all part of stormwater management education. And so, you know, we're just working on trying to get that word out. So we are taking a little hiatus, it was a busy spring, so we will. I am.
Blame you.
I would love for anybody else on the EC to join the green team, because, it's just, it's great, strength in numbers. So anybody's welcome to attend and get involved, so that's it.
The Sustainable Jersey grant, what is that funding something specific?
That was funded for the pollinator garden. That was a $2,000 grant that we got through the PSE&G Foundation.
Looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
That's fine.
It does, yeah, the whole entrance there has come a long way. So like I said earlier, Environment has a budget of 4,500. We have until the end of the year to spend it. I don't know, but my understanding is that the Environmental Commission doesn't really spend it.
That's correct. The
Yeah.
Environmental Commission has a small budget. I have the whole budget here if anyone wants to look. It's mostly dues and fees and sort of administrative things.
And we paid those for this year already. So
Yeah.
effectively, the EC has drained our portion of that budget.
Yeah.
And so the balance is available. It's like 30, it's not. There's $800, $300 anyway. So I guess my point is, if you have ideas, projects, things in mind, let's make sure they're on the table at our next meeting. If you don't, let's find a way before, because we don't have a meeting in August. By the time we get to September, we need to know how that money is going to be spent. Otherwise, it gets very hard to spend it before the end of the year.
Just as a FYI to you, in years, what happened last year and years past that we don't get approved our agenda until like midway, our year, and our big event is prior to that. And so Love Where You Live Day was completely funded out of, mostly volunteer printing and that stuff. So that's one of the issues with that. And then also, I know, Christy, when I asked you too, like about the staples, like, where can we go and get printing of like brochures, right? Or posters or things that like are education materials. And we don't have a right, a vendor, an approved
I
vendor.
think I sent you a few, Henderson promos sheets were used for door hangers.
The door hangers that have some from it, but they're very, yeah.
They didn't have trouble using them.
No,
Try
they weren't
again.
pricey, yeah, okay. I think if, but.
They were really, they
Okay.
sound really nice too.
Yeah, and moving forward, but like, I know that was with what happened last year. We didn't find out about our budget until in the fall, and then we were scrambling to spend the money.
So the budget starts to get formed in September, I believe. So that's the time to start thinking about it,
Mhm.
or maybe before September. And then my understanding is, I haven't been through September yet, but my understanding is the department heads and so on, everyone sort of submits their request.
Okay.
And then it's tallied up, and then we have to get into the gap.
Right, but then when does it become approved to actually be used for the following
Once
calendar year?
Passed.
Right, when does that happen usually? Like, when did it happen?
Well, we
this year?
we passed it in March, was it April? March, what month is it right now? July?
It's June.
Yeah.
But was it past
Oh,
May,
yeah,
April,
that's why
right?
you just
And
did
that's
this.
why we never.
But we do an interim budget.
Yeah.
It goes off last year's levels and that's very common in New Jersey.
So,
We're
yeah,
sort of-
I'm sorry, Phil, you don't have it. it starts over in January 1. I mean, we have drawn down funds already. Before this meeting, we've already drawn down funds, so the funds are there. You would have access to them for your spring events, thinking about next year. But certainly, if there's anything we want to do in the fall, like, we should, I guess, what I'm trying to say is we should start to think about it, discuss it, if not now, next meeting, and then have a plan, for how we want to spend it by September. Because my understanding, if we don't use it, it's kind of hard to get it back the next
Yes,
year.
if it falls out of the budget, falls out of the appropriations, hard to get it back in because of the cap. If it's
And it will be
appropriated
like-
and you don't spend it, it still was appropriated and next year should live. So the difference between spending and the budget making, and the riskiest thing is to have it fall out of the budget.
So the money that we all approved this year was primarily for Green Team for Love Where You Live Day, that we didn't get to spend in time. So that money can go towards next year's Love Where You Live Day since it's already approved.
But would have to be approved in next year's budget. That's a New Jersey law thing. That's not my discretion,
So.
but it's in the budget now, right? So that gives it inertia for next year.
But then we can decide on reallocating those funds to a different line, say the rain garden.
I would think so,
Okay.
but I would, Nancy.
And looking for the rain garden underneath the green team, if that's. Or does it have to be specifically for Love Where You Live Day?
Maybe I would check with Nancy or.
And I'm not saying it's,
Then it was, environmental commission miscellaneous.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
and I'm not saying it has to be the rain garden, I was using that as an example. If, like you said in the earlier part of the conversation, if what's going on at Normandy is really important, and we can use some of those funds for an expert, for a study, for a piece of technology, for, something to further that. We can use it there
The
too.
plan's there. I think
The
it's
plan
not
is there,
Revisiting it. to-
$77,000 is
Yeah.
allocated in a budget there. Right, correct,
That's
But the
that's
design needs to be slightly modified since more of the.
bank is eroded.
As he wrote it, so they have to find another survey to update that.
So that is
This user.
my understanding is that is a capital budget, which is different than the budget. So capital budget is, a different animal. And that. Just because it's been approved doesn't mean that it's funded. So you still have to find the funding. I'm not saying the funding isn't there, but it's treated very differently than an operating budget, which is what we're talking about, 4,500, that's an operating budget. And we have, I know Teresa has a big list, the town has dozens of capital projects that have been approved via bond ordinance. They're in various stages of funding. So that's the area I'm trying to chew on now.
Okay. So maybe a little bit more clarification, just so that we know moving forward, if living shorelines is gonna be our priority and our goal, like understanding like.
We don't allocate the money to that and then.
Right, or like that $77,000 that we've all been knowing that has been part of it. Is that really there or is it not there? Is it usable,
Yeah, so again, there's a
Okay.
difference between it being approved, that's a legal term for a bond ordinance and a bond council. A capital action, and then funding it is different, and that can be grants, it could be. From a governing body allocation, it could be bonding,
Okay,
and so I don't know the status of the funding of it.
okay.
You can't
Well-
spend it until it's funded.
Right, but wasn't it part of the settlement?
I know there was $20,000. My understanding is there was $20,000 that was given as part of the settlement. But I don't know.
Well, I know that there's like a fund of money,
There's something,
part of the settlement,
yes.
okay,
I don't know if it's 77.
okay. Okay, because I didn't think it was a bond work, I thought it was just part of the settlement with the marina. Okay. Okay,
Thanks, so that's on budget. Planning board, Anna, anything?
Nothing more than what I mentioned about the master plan reexamination, well, the redo of it, and we're gonna start talking about it for 26. So that's the deadline that we have to go within. It will be, I hope, our priority to make sure that the EC has a seat at the table on that for sure, so that it's, considered in the entire master plan, 'cause that affects all of us, and then some. So we'll have more updates.
Are you anticipating we'd ask for someone from this group to participate in the crafting and getting it?
I think it would be, I'm not gonna step on Fred's toes on how that goes. It would be my recommendation that we, in some capacity, bring in someone who's knowledgeable to all of the aspects of the town to have an input on that. Whether even like Nick or whoever does the plan, I was not around for the first one that was made, or, you know, whatever, but I don't know how the process is, but I do think that it should be heavily considered that someone from this group is involved in that in some capacity. Was anybody there for the reexamination in 2016? John? Were you guys involved?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, again, I think we talked about some of the issues, and again, I think it's a very important document for us because it really is the way that the planning board communicates with the council, gives them priority.
And then how the variants are applied, all of the different stuff. So do you recommend someone from the EC as a part of those conversations?
Oh, yeah, I would think so, because certainly there's elements that are gonna overlap, right? And obviously the ERI is a resource, if you will, for the people doing the planning document, right?
So maybe that's our,
That was adopted into it.
that's
I-
our stop date.
So we're going back to a very old fight, but I'll give it to you now, okay, which is okay. Some people think Fairhaven should be made a national park, and I'm an urban planning guy, and my thought is we should be a livable, sustainable community. Because there's gonna be people here, and how do we make it, you know, and that's where the planning document kind of, you know, runs into each other. Because, you know, the question is, what are we trying to do with our housing stock? What are we trying to do with affordable housing? What are we trying to do with our sustainability, right? You know, keeping the town walkable, keeping the kids biking to school, you know? Those are my things. Like, I get less aggravated about the national parkish stuff, you know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna be pristine natural environment. We're gonna be a lived-in environment. But we could be, the planning document should reflect a vision of what should the future look like.
Great.
You know, and I don't know how well it does at this point. That's a good question, right? Does it address climate change issues? Does it address coastal flooding well? Does it address livability, sustainability? You know,
It's the opportunity to redo soup to nuts. So whatever it looks like now, we would be starting, that was just the reexamination.
I mean, there are things we do that make me crazy, like picking up brush. I have a compost pile. You can eliminate brush tomorrow. I could care less. Because every ounce of diesel that we spend to take it to Colts Neck and then bring back mulch into town, I go nuts. But, you know, that's one of those things, the livability, right? Which is, maybe we make peace with that. Say, okay, we're gonna burn some diesel, we're gonna have some carbon footprint because it's important to maintain gardens and, you know. So that's a compromise, right? And I don't know how well the planning document right now, we can take a look at it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we get privy to the plan?
It's
Well,
online.
look at the original, right?
So it's all online. I mean, I can send
But do
it.
they ask for like, I mean, we asked for our ERI, we asked the environmental roundtable for recommendations, right? And that's the planning board, zoning board, rec committee, shade tree, natural area, that's where I think it was beneficial having an environmental roundtable.
Yeah.
Not saying environmental commission roundtable, just environmental roundtable, because there's a lot of overlap, right? And so that's where I think like, okay, we share our ERI, we ask for input and valuable feedback. They share their master plan or, you know, and then we give feedback.
I'll give you a very expensive thing that makes me crazy. We do full restorations of our streets. You could probably live with restorations, not restoration. You can treat them with the surface, you can crack seal stuff. We don't have to replace everything. It's very expensive to do. We have 95 streets in town. Some of them are key, you know, Hands, Third, River, Ridge, you know, but other ones could be a little more shoddy, if you will.
Band-Aid.
But actually, that's a good for the environment, right? Because if we don't renovate them, we just do some crack sealing and pothole repair and say, look, this is one of our goals. That would be a great way to cut the budget and also be environmentally responsible. Because they're doing repairs right now. I appreciate it. But on the other hand, you know,
So unless that's in a report that Nick is reading,
yeah,
or you know, or in some other form, it's just a good idea.
you are 100% right, because the engineers and I do this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Because
priority.
we talk about different things, and my point is they want, you know, up to what's called the AASHTO standard. And I'm sitting there going,
We could be fine with what we could work with.
I mean, I don't want trip hazards on the sidewalks, I don't want giant potholes, but I mean, you know, maybe you could just seal coat the street and it looks a little more I mean, again, the problem is everybody wants it to look like Beverly Hills, right? And then you're like, that's not really the sustainable way to go, right?
I agree with that. I think that's a good thing to talk about during the master plan. I mean, I don't think that we need to be spending that much money on road improvements in a small town like this.
That accentuates walkability and pedestrian friendly, yeah.
I don't want to be a party pooper, but the number one issue I heard about knocking on doors was the streets, potholes, street repair. That was everybody brought it.
And again, we've made a lot of progress. When I first got on council in 2004, Forest Haven would just collapse because they didn't replace the culvert underneath it, and it eroded out and the road collapsed. So I'm glad in 15 years I didn't have any, I don't think I had any collapses. You know what I mean? But that's like, and it's an endless cycle. 'Cause you
There
gotta
is,
keep-
I mean, if you wanna talk about a repair, the collapse, almost collapse, Knollwood, right in the back of Knollwood. What, is it on Board of Ed property? Is it on town
I hope so.
property? Is
That
it-
property.
I don't know.
I always hope it was on the board.
I don't know, but it's getting
Where is
bigger and
it? Where
bigger.
is it?
You cannot miss it. There's 4 different cones and it's a big sinkhole.
What's my
Is it
name?
the parking lot?
It is in the parking lot, that
Off-site?
storm drain that I think is
Good to see.
started.
That looks like the Board of Ed. That's always.
I don't know, but I think it started with the storm drain. I don't know, it could be a great
I'll take a look.
collaborative project.
No collaborative. No. They love to
Most of the
collaborative, but they don't put up
towns
any money. I don't know.
Anyway, and
Stay
it's
away
a
from
very
that.
wealthy
Let them
project.
figure it out. There's
Anyway.
your opportunity.
Be a good
So,
neighbor.
Anna, coming back,
Yeah.
I think just, you mentioned DC being involved, someone brought up the environmental roundtable being involved, I think it's probably broad, it's. You obviously are, the link, but think about how that planning process, the master plan process, updating, how do we get the people from the environmental roundtable
Yeah.
on it too?
Yeah, I'll talk to Fred at our next meeting and see what the game plan is for our group to redo it. It's 2 years out, but it will come quick, so we'll start to have those conversations.
So it's like 24 meetings.
Yeah. Not enough.
Or less,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I think that's great, thank you.
Yep.
Brian, anything else on your plate you want to bring up?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, Shippey's Pond. Christine, did you get this email copy of this? Maybe you can share it if next day or so. So there's a person wrote to the mayor that lives on Shippey's Pond, which is privately owned. I did not realize that.
Oh, yeah.
And the nut of the message is, since last summer, the pond has been completely taken over by water chestnut. From our understanding, this is a highly invasive species which can very easily spread between waterways, rapidly destroying ecosystems and potentially be highly damaging to Fairhaven's riverside ponds in terms of visual appeal and fishing, boating, growing, were it to spread further. You'll get the whole email. I just want to get it on your plate. I am not a water chestnut expert. I don't know if it can be treated, how it's treated, how it spreads. But if there's an idea or.
It's interesting to hear about. Shippey's Pond has no public access, and they've attempted a few times in the past, I've seen them attempt to drag us into their problems. If they want to talk about public access, but I get interested in, spending public money on their maintenance. I mean, we could talk about it, but it's a private problem. It's like your backyard. I mean, what do you do about poison ivy in your backyard? I don't know. You can figure it out.
Yeah, but then what about when it becomes like, right, the bamboo in your neighbor's yard that goes into your yard, now it's like your problem,
Good question.
And so it's like that water chestnut, if it enters into other places, well, then who's gonna clean that up?
I think you would find that there also would be real discussions about how we would manage it if we're gonna enter into their property. What if we,
I get
it's
But it's
really,
like,
it's a good question. We get into these things about driveways and sidewalks, and the question is, where does borough property end and where does private property begin? And I can just think of this, it's nice to send a note to the mayor, but what is the Shippey Pond, I would ask, what is the Shippey Pond Association saying about this?
Yeah, I think they're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna-
It's in there.
that's good, we'll cite them for having an invasive species that they should manage.
Is
How about
is
that?
in
I'll
the-
drop that one.
Is that an invasive species?
No, I'm pretty quick, you know what, they're telling us about it, yeah, get on it, right now. Good, excellent. There you go, let's cite him and say, yeah, clean up this chest.
So what he said, what they wrote in here is, we believe we are beginning to mobilize other direct neighbors to assist with the situation at Shippey's, but realistically, it will require a coordinated multi-year cleanup and investment plan. I thought the town should be made aware of this, both in case you believe that this should be a situation handled by the township rather than an informal resident association, and put you on the alert for potential sightings of water chestnut elsewhere in Fairhaven.
Right, and
So
we
I
should
know-
write back to them and say, clean it up quick, because we don't want more water.
So I know fish spread from duck feet. When they land, they pick up the egg to the next lake. I don't know if this happens that way, but just, I don't think you guys have enough to do, so I thought I would bring that up.
No, I think we should just cite it. I think it's a good point. I think we should cite it and say you have an invasive species, you should deal with it, because we don't want to be dealing with it later.
So the second thing is the budget next year, we're talking about a little bit at the beginning of the meeting. I'll save you the gory details unless you want them, but the garbage contract is blowing up on us. The increase in the budget is gonna be enormous and it's gonna crowd out a lot of other things. One of the things that's being considered is reducing the recycling pickup from every week to every 2 weeks. Nobody wants to do it, but it sort of comes down to, do we keep it once a week or do we get rid of, things that are really important? I'm making this up, a police officer, right? Not advocating for it, but, really starting to get it, not cutting fat, cutting bone. So just be aware of that. And then last, I did get, from the mayor during the meeting, the authorization, to appoint Sean. I can email it to John, I can have it emailed to everybody, or I can read it right now if you want.
I just want to see the enabling legislation. I got something from Allison, which I appreciate. You can send it to
Yeah,
me
so
too,
it's,
but
it's from.
no, it's a change in the way we're doing things. And if we were out of compliance with convention, that's fine. I just would never have known it
No,
because
mayor's always allowed us to,
select our own.
yeah.
I also just on that note, and I've worked with Sean now in the planning board, I'm like, you and I are the last two in, I would feel personally much more comfortable if it was a co-chair situation, because, and Sean, like, you're a very smart, capable person, but this is some complicated stuff. This isn't really just like, I mean, all of these appointments are, and I think they're incredibly important. There are people at this table that know a lot more than myself. I'm the first to recognize that. I would never be the chair of this. I personally would feel more comfortable if Josh would consider at least appointing the co-chair. I think the appointment seemed a little out of left field. I don't think that the option was circulated to the rest of the group. Not that they would have all accepted
It was circulated to some.
to some, but there are people who have been on here for a long time, and I think that the consideration should have been given to them before someone entirely green was brought into the platform. And that is no disrespect for you. It's just, I know that the way this operates, I know that we're getting clean house. Brian had been in a position for a long time. This was, it's a new start. Teresa's leaving. That's a new start. Like Fairhaven has an opportunity to kind of move forward from some things in the past. I would like to be really intentional about that. And in my personal opinion, once this is considered, and I can talk to Josh directly, but if you want to liaise, I would feel more comfortable if this could be considered a co-chair situation.
So what I think,
No, perhaps you could just read us what was the resolution? Was this a town council or
so
was
this
it?
is
Like,
New Jersey statute, membership of ECs.
yeah, I got that. But is that state statute?
Yeah, it's just New Jersey NJSA. New Jersey
Yeah,
statute.
okay. That was my question.
It says, the mayor shall designate one of the members to serve as chair, it says chairman, it should be chairperson,
Right.
and presiding officer of the commission. And there's,
But one of the members, right? One of the members,
Well, you can designate a new member. I mean, that's not the challenge. I just didn't know this.
new members.
See, my version doesn't have state law. It just has the numbers.
so, I mean, I'll advocate publicly why I think Sean is great for this. So, my view of the EC, sort of what I said before, is it's a lot of passion, a lot of knowledge, a lot of caring, but not a lot of direction, not a lot of focus. And that's what he has in spades. He's passionate, he's level-headed, he's project-oriented, and I think it will move the EC ball farther than if we didn't have those skills. So I say give him a chance.
Sure, go.
I was just gonna say, it would be nice from people on the committee just to, and we've all did this in the beginning of the year, to give our background and to reason why you wanted to be on this role. And I think everybody explained their background. What
Maybe we
they
should
did
all
for-
go around the table right now.
Perhaps. I just
Because
think
he hasn't
everybody-
met us. He doesn't know who we
Exactly.
are.
Okay.
And again, I think it was more of a shock factor, to be honest with you. No, I mean, I didn't think the mayor was gonna appoint. I had given the mayor some counsel guidance about talking to us because I think it was a very significant move to do this. And, you know, I think, again, I didn't know we were gonna appoint, to be honest with you. That's just, I didn't get that one, that they were gonna appoint a chair. I thought it was gonna be, we're gonna appoint a new member and then we're gonna have another election, we're gonna come back here and have a discussion. So tonight, I was kind of surprised, that's all. But I think it's nice for everybody to talk to you, and I don't think anybody's opposed to you. I think it was more of a shock factor.
The-
it's more of a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This whole situation's been crazy, in my opinion. I think it's just been like, I didn't even know if we were ever gonna meet again, but I do think, you know, there was a process. We voted on Brian in the beginning. I think that was the way this was set up.
And we voted on a vice chair.
And a vice chair, so I don't know, it just feels like things got bumped. I think it could be a little more intentional. So, that's my.
So there's more to the story than what you all see, I understand it. So there's.
Just transparency, I mean,
Transparency, I was approached.
Yes, thank you.
I-
I didn't want to say that.
I declined because I knew I did not have enough time, but also I was expecting that somebody else that has been on would at least be asked. And I know they weren't. So, and even just to get the opinions like, hey, we're looking at these folks to join. Again, nothing, I don't know your background. I'd love to hear about it. But I mean, just to get that's what we've done in the past. This
This is definitely not about Sean.
No,
This is
no, it's not.
Brian. No, it just really was a situation when I talked and counseled the mayor to some degree. And I didn't talk to him directly, but I gave some advice. And I basically just said, look, it's a very provocative thing to take the chair of the commission. You know what I mean? I mean, we've been operating.
We didn't take him on.
I got it. I'm not gonna, again, I can parse words too. I mean, I'm just gonna say, that it's just when you take the chair out of a committee. If you suddenly bump me out of my committees on campus, everybody's gonna wonder why, and it does happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. But, then it was a situation where we went then to an appointment of a new chair, and I was just kind of like, oh, that's a double kind of move, you know what I mean? It was like, we're taking out the old chair and we're putting in a new chair, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So really, more than anything, I think everybody's just we're just trying to adapt, and that's what I'm gonna say, Sean. I don't think anybody's negative feelings.
Before the record, I'd like to sort of revisit the bidding here. So the chair resigned.
Mm.
The mayor approached Jessie.
Mm.
She declined. There was discussion about another member that was approached a while ago that also declined.
but that was under different, that was under way different pretenses. I was not going to. That is complete, I'm shocked that you bring that up right now,
I
right?
said there was a discussion that there was a member that was approached a while ago. We didn't approach that person now.
Okay,
Okay.
I was approached a while ago, but that was under different pretenses and I was not going to. Take anybody from a position that was already in place and voted in. Would I have appreciated another phone call or like other people on this committee?
All those discussions
Perhaps.
happened after the EC chair resigned. None of it was before.
Right.
Okay,
So we had an opening. And then we started talking about it. And we approached Jessie and then we started talking more broadly. And then it was a discussion of where I shared my thoughts of like, what does the EC need to move? Like they have so much good stuff. But I've been on the EC for 3 years now and it feels like the list of accomplishments is pretty short. And like, what will it take to get that list populated, to get us moving? And I think the skills that Sean brings will move that. I mean, you
The
guys can-
skills that he brings would be, but to go from nothing to like that jump to me it's a little.
I mean, I'm a newbie, I've been here since January, and I'm still learning. I'm not saying much because there's so much to learn. So I can just imagine being in that position of trying to learn everything. It's a lot.
I actually think this is a very civil discussion, because I'm at the university and we're living through the Palestinian and Israel protests. And I was just at commencement on Friday, and we had a protest. So everybody here is being real civil, because there is a lot of, there was a rock thrown in the lake, and there's a lot of, we're all kind of just sitting here trying to go. I don't think anybody here is angry. I don't think we're upset. We're just kind of sitting here going, okay, how do we move forward? I think and my question really at the beginning is about due process, because I want to make sure we're doing it correctly by the books. And as long as we're doing it by the books, I'm not gonna have any objection, but I think it's nice to talk to each other and start to think about how we're gonna work together. That's what I think.
And to know the background, I mean, you
Yeah.
sent out a nice letter and all, but I know nothing about you and your interests and background in the environment. And so somebody who's gonna lead the charge, you might have all the skills, that's great, but I also wanna know what you can bring and why you wanted to take this on and what your motivation is. And so, I mean, because everyone else here has been requested to be on. And I don't know if that was the case then or not. And so, you know, and so I would just like to know.
Okay.
Great.
Well, that's true.
Anything else? Happy to, guys, and that's how, I mean, you get to, this may be a bit of a sense of my style, right? You guys are all volunteers. And you have to respect that you've taken time out of your day and away from your family to come here tonight and discuss matters that are important to our town. And maybe not important to a lot of other people, but, you know, are important to the town. So I respect that, I appreciate that, and I think that's where my passion lies for service to the community. And so long time ago, I said, you know, to Josh, I'm happy to serve in any capacity I can. It's resulted in Brush and Leaf Committee, you know, a year or so ago. It's resulted on the planning board with Anna. And the environment for me, you know, if I had to sum it up in this town, it's a tremendous value to the town. It's a tremendous value financially to our property values. It's a tremendous value to my preferred way of life, being outdoors, being active. I have a daughter who plays lots of sports. I'm running in Fairhaven Fields on a weekly basis. So the value that our space that's been set aside for open space brings to me and what I think to the community. Not to mention the value being near the water. You know, I've always lived on the coast. I wouldn't know how to live in the interior of our country. I certainly couldn't live on the west coast because I mean the water would be on the wrong side. But it's always, you know, coastal communities. I have another home in Ocean City, you know, which is right on very close to the water as well. So anyway, that's the short answer. The long answer is I very much love the aspect of my own property and gardening, and I've been taking advantage of the programs to bring trees in, you know, through the borough's program. When I first moved here, one of the first ways I got involved in the community was the cleanups in the natural area with Mark, bringing my own chainsaw, and before chainsaws were outlawed by us to use.
That was another 5 point. We can talk about that later.
That happened.
But just, you know, you're talking about, you're sharing the, you know, the 3rd Street entrance and how that's been updated. And there, I remember, like, it feels like just 2 years ago, it was a thicket that you couldn't see through, and now you can. And like you said, there's trails. And so I'm not a self-described tree hugger. That's not how I see myself, but you know, I drive an electric vehicle because I thought it was important to set an example that we need to reduce emissions from our vehicles. You know, we try to minimize our waste, going out in the trash. Like, I don't need a second trash collection during the week. I would gladly give that up if that helped our budget. But moreover, I'm really passionate about preserving the space that we have. So when I hear about, you know, 21 Fairhaven becoming available as a park, I get super excited about that. I think having more public space on the water is better. It's better for all of us. And if that means that we now have an opportunity to act and exercise our intelligence, our experience, our collective energy and will to do something positive that will drive that project specifically forward, but also, you know, create the ripples for future generations, like, that's awesome. So I believe in the power of this organization. I believe in the power of policy. I know it doesn't sound super exciting when you're not, you know, boots on the ground doing stuff, but if we're not out front setting this is how we feel about certain things, I think it's really hard to get people to follow. And so that's, you know, when I was approached, I thought the megaphone of you guys and your passion and me and kind of what Brian, you know, said, I thought it made a lot of sense. And I'm happy to, you know, continue to demonstrate that on a monthly basis, on a regular basis in between meetings, and how we prepare and how we make these the most effective as we can. But yes, I am new to the team, for sure.
You know, I'm just gonna say, well, I've been, like I said, I've been here since January, and in my short tenure, from what I've learned from these two girls about their passion, it mirrors exactly what you said. That's how I feel. You know, and to me personally, I think they should have been given the opportunity for that position.
Yeah, I have to agree, I have to agree.
I mean, I
As
this
a
is the
co-chair.
third or fourth meeting I've been to or that we've had. And listening to Kelly tonight with her passion about everything. I mean, it's amazing. And that's how I feel.
Mayor, over here.
Yeah.
You have good
I think that they're, what they do for work is also significant and it would drive this. They have a more holistic approach to, you know, just kind of, they're more nuanced in what the details include. I think, Jesse, you and I have spoken about that, Kelly, know that to be true as well. I have to agree with you on that, Mr. Dorner.
Thank you.
And I don't have any background in it, but I think we all can be cohesive project managers when it comes to this sort of thing. I think we can all start to drive this forward. I don't think that's a negative, but I don't think that should be the one differentiator for what would cause the appointment of chair.
Yeah, I don't think it was the one differentiator. So when I was in business school, I had taken accounting class. And I approached the school and said, I was on the accounting team in high school. Very cool. Yeah. And we used to do tournaments. It was crazy. And I said, I want to test out. And they said, the accounting class is not going to teach you accounting, it's going to teach you how to manage accountants. There's a different skill set between knowing how to do something, how to manage projects, harness energy. That's what Sean brings. So I don't think that he knows any less about the environment than me, for example. But I think his organization skills are outstanding, and the way he conducts himself, the voice, the demeanor, all that stuff is going to help all of you be more empowered, I think. But I hear you, I understand.
No. I mean, I think it's just a healthy conversation to have. We got to the point that, you know, we feel like we didn't really have much control over it. It's been confirmed that it's not really up to us, but I do think it's important, you know. It's something to consider, in my opinion.
I agree.
All right, so can we take an action, I guess, through you?
Which action? What?
Well, I think the collective voice of the commission is to consider a co-chair. So how do we want to do
Well, first of all, I don't know if that's, you know, I've learned, this is not a cop out, but I don't know if that's possible. I'll be honest, I hope that it's not possible, because I would rather just have Sean be the chair.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. I would like you guys to give him a chance. That's what I would like. But if, you know, if everyone tells me that you want me to advocate to the mayor for something, you know, I would feel obliged to do that.
I personally would like you to see the advocate to the mayor that we have say in who we think we'd like to see as chair.
I question the effectiveness of a co-chair. I mean, we are an organization that's been apparently labeled as a short list of getting things done. So
That's mine.
yeah, by you. And so I just wonder if that would be obstreperous to any kind of process, and I think maybe what I'm hearing is people are not happy that they either weren't consulted in the decision or didn't have more say in it, and I think that's the message maybe we want to send to the mayor. Because we're talking to the wrong
Well,
people.
he's here, so
Oh.
we can send it to him right here. No, I just think more than
I
anything.
had a conversation with your meeting and I didn't want.
No, but you're always welcome, Mayor. I mean, I would welcome the mayor if he
You
wants
want
to
to
talk.
have an open conversation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it'd be good. Again, Josh, you missed some of the earlier commentary, but again, no one has expressed any negativity about Sean.
Cool.
And also, I think it's just, anytime this type of change occurs,
Sure.
it always causes waves and ripples. And so we don't know you, we haven't even introduced ourselves yet. So, and part of it is we also dove right into the meeting tonight and we didn't even say hello to each other, you know what I mean? So there is a level at which you gotta get to know each other, right?
Sure.
So we're just about to go around the room and get to know each other.
Okay, all right.
So.
So does anyone have any questions for me? I mean, I am here. If you'd like to ask me a question, I'd be happy to answer it, but I can speak on behalf of, I kind of heard Brian talking about why Sean was chosen. I would say what he said times 10. I mean, this is a leader. That's why he was chosen for the chair, for the position. And I don't feel in any way as if I need to be apologetic for the decision. Of course, I'd love to have this conversation and get your feedback as far as why you're apprehensive about it. And I value that feedback, but you remember I was in the same position. I came in as mayor, I had no expertise whatsoever. I think my one attribute that I brought to the table is that I thought I could lead. Now, people might dispute that 3 years later, but that's what I brought to the table, is I could organize a meeting, I could get a consensus, I could keep people moving in one direction, and listen, I'm not gonna talk about, where the committee was. I want to talk about where the commission is going. That's what's much more important, is what does the future look like? So, another example, it's different, the library, Board of Trustees. Okay, we had 5 or 6 members that were in those positions for years. I'm talking 20, 30 years, the same people. And I sat at this table and they told me, if you make changes here, you don't understand. We have an entire new group. Have you guys been up to the library lately? It is unbelievable. The difference in there, the energy, the excitement that it's brought. I really do believe, I don't want to put too much pressure on Sean. It's not gonna happen in one meeting. But I think when we're sitting here 12 months from now, the feeling in this room is going to be collectively different than it was prior to this move. Okay, and that's not a knock on anyone. That's just saying I think that this group needs this type of person right here to lead it moving forward. Yes.
Josh, I mean, I think that from my perspective, I think we all want to see a smooth transition. We have concerns about the Madison River Municipal Committee, right? We want to make sure we have a good transition there. And I also think that with your offering here, I mean, now we have a strong liaison with the council.
Right.
And therefore, now we can look forward to having a much more positive and strong relationship with the council.
Sure.
In getting things done. So I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. It's just that's how to figure out a way to have a good transition.
Yeah, I mean, he has my full support. I won't share private conversations. I will say the chair position was offered to a current member.
Already said it.
Okay, so I was hopeful, I did it in a positive way, Jesse, and I wanted you to take the position. I totally respect that you, I'm ecstatic to see you up here and contributing and still in the position that you are. All things considered, looking forward into the future for this commission, I think Sean's gonna be a fantastic choice. I do. And if anyone want to talk to me about that individually, I welcome that conversation. I'm certainly not running from it. Time will tell. I'll say it's the right decision. And if I was a blackjack dealer, I'd be sliding my money into the middle of the table on this one there.
So. You want to address the co-chair concept? That's all.
I didn't even hear the co-chair.
So there, some members of everyone is expressing a desire to maybe have a co-chair, consider that, and I said. That I'm not sure if it's allowed, I hope that it's not, because I believe in Sean.
I don't think it's necessary, but I'll have those conversations with everyone offline if they'd like to. You know, based on the bylaws of the commission, mayor sets the chair, that's what I've done. I hope you also support that appointment, give him a chance. I'm the first person to admit if something doesn't go right.
My initial question was just, I didn't know the legislation, it was different than our normal process in the
It
bit.
is.
And so therefore, I want to see the legislation, I still haven't seen it.
John brought up a good point that if it wasn't the right way, that could invalidate what we're doing.
Sure,
I wanna make sure it's right.
That's all I wanted to clarify, because I've had numerous fights at the university over people being not correctly appointed. And what would happen is people would try and select a committee that's not legal.
Yeah.
And then pass rules, and it's like, well, no, you got the wrong body.
The
Look at the wrong body, you get to go to court.
last 2 years, I was presented that I should be appointing the chair, and I chose not.
That's fine. It's just different than I normally, and I've been here for much.
And I want to explain my resistance to the co-chair idea is nothing against any of you. I think what this commission needs the most is leadership and direction, and a co-chair would believe that. And saying if it's not working, you know, I'll admit that, you know, the changes have to happen, I suppose, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, suggest it's not gonna work, but, I think having a co-chair would make it harder to point one direction.
We did pass a resolution supporting the council, adopting a deer management plan that's in line so that you don't have to, the council doesn't have to be the front people on decision. That we support you and support the process, following the DEP's process to get a herd of the right size. Those are the things that are good. We can interact with each other and actually
Absolutely.
solve problems together. You want to know about us, Sean?
I'd love to.
You wanna start?
I'm Bill Dorner. I've been a Fairhaven resident for 38 years and it's a wonderful town. And Anna went to school with my youngest daughter.
There you go. That's the intent.
And that's all I have to offer. I went to school in the early aughts here, so.
I'm John Peters, the former Borough Council President, and I served the council from 2004 to 15, and I'm a big water person. Well, as I said, I'm a boater, a fisherman, you know, sailor, you know, river rat, so.
And Jesse Murray, I've been in town since 2016. I am a marine fisheries habitat biologist and ecologist. That's what I do for my career, and also I'm in town. Know a little bit of everything with the environment.
Excellent.
Kelly Flanagan, I've been here since 2017. I currently, I teach at Brookdale, in science, in the environmental education department. I've got my doctorate in science ed. Environmental education is my passion. I'm chair of the green team, and, you know, very firm believer in grassroots, education public in getting and initiating change. When I'm not on here, I do enjoy being on the river, paddleboard, surfing, water. So like the environment is a very big part of my life. Yeah.
That's it.
No, I grew up here. I'm a lifelong resident, get to raise my family here. We know each other from the planning board. I did the same thing. I reached out to Josh. He probably regrets taking the email that I sent him a few years later, but I told him I'm at his disposal with anything. I'm very passionate about the town. I started the farmers market, so.
That's awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah.
They sold that. They sold everything. They were empty.
We really couldn't.
They had empty stalls. I hope we're gonna get back again.
Saturday. Yeah. So that's I'm just trying to find ways. I love this town. I left this town, I came back and I realized, and I just love it more than I ever thought. So there are ways that if I can contribute to helping it pro bono, I'll do it. I love a free job. So Susan.
And, I don't know how long I've lived here. It seems like forever, but it isn't. Raised my daughter here. She got married, moved back, raising her kids here. And, as far as my green creds, let's see, I'm a LEED accredited professional, if that means anything. And with a specialty in interior design and construction. I have a degree in business and design. And I was asked by the state to sit on the residential remodeling guidelines, green guidelines. And then I was asked by my alma mater to write a course on sustainability and teach it at King. So I did that for about 5 years. And now I'm making art and it's environmentally focused.
Fantastic. Sounds like you should be on the planning board.
I know.
Trying to update the master plan. And I mean, I gave my intro earlier, just newer to town, 2019, kind of right in before COVID. I have a daughter that's at Knollwood. I didn't grow up here, but I grew up in a town that's almost carbon copy. I grew up near Greenwich, Connecticut, and waterfronts, a lot of rivers, a lot of riverfront properties. I spent a lot of my summers at the equivalent of like the Fairhaven dock and, near the beach and all that. So it almost feels like when we moved here, kind of felt like I moved back home in a way. There's a lot of familiar smells and the way our roads are deteriorated on purpose. It was like home, so.
Came up to way to save you money.
Yeah.
John wants more potholes.
Yeah, I'm recommending potholes. That's one of my- I'm not always popular, but economists will do these things.
I know it's getting late. There was a couple things on my list when we get to new business. We don't have to sort of solve it here, but I want to get it back on awareness. So brush and leaf, I mentioned, we were on it. I think it's great to see the gray containers being adopted by some. It's sad to see some people still dumping soil and leaves and whatnot on the street. I feel like there's another phase that is something, we or the green team could consider, which is like another round of awareness and education and helping people understand how best to adopt, what's been put forward. So, and like I said, we don't have to solve it tonight, but I wanted to get that out there as an important item for me, because I do believe it has a lot of downflow effect, literally on stormwater. Especially in the neighborhood, I live in the historic district neighborhood where, people are still doing that, so. I don't know if that was something that came up in prior meetings as far as kind of picking up the baton from that committee or what, council adopted, but I'd certainly like to see us examine some options there. In the notes, I saw something mentioned about a Fourth Creek cleanup. I didn't hear it mentioned tonight. Is that something also worth putting on our agenda for future?
We did, we talked about, there's a lot of invasive, a lot of Japanese knotweed, there's a lot of places that need.
Let me share the weed study with you. I'll put that on my list for next week. There was a weed study. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because that all treats
Yeah.
knotweed, which is what is eating up the forest for the most part.
I talked about that.
So it wasn't, I guess the cleanup wasn't necessarily litter, it was more like the invasive species that have kind of filled in
I
that
think there's a
space.
little bit of both. I mean, there was a complaint that it does look trashy when you look down there and there's, it can be improved. I think on both sides of that street right there.
And you're talking about looking at it.
That's not gonna belong to them.
Because I said.
Because I wandered along, I got into it.
Yes.
So I was curious, does it kind of fall into that category of like a rain garden and project?
No, I think.
Grassroots,
We were
telling
just,
people what's going on.
it came up in just casually,
Yeah,
it was no plan. It was
no,
just a
I think we're.
Yeah, I think you're just talking about cleanups.
Yeah.
That's all that came up.
I think maybe Bonnie might have brought it up. Thanks. Bonnie, public comment.
Once we get there. She's on, so.
Yeah, she might.
Bring it up.
Yeah.
We didn't get the public comment yet. so-
Are we on new business or?
We are a new business.
Can I just say quickly that, I'd like to, well, the mayor's here, and Brian here, so it's great. Hance Road got eliminated from the projects that were done, the boat ramp and the Grange, right? And I think we could do something a little less, taking the Third Street model, where we can get some community involvement and improve the ends of Hance on the river with some just basic volunteer effort. And I'd like to work on getting that organized and put together a plan, a basic plan of how we can stabilize the bank and also make a nice seating area, really.
Past that gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
because that's been one of our areas of public access. I'm on the west side of town. We're kind of short on the west side of town. So that's an area. Now, my wife yells at me. And I thank God I'm off council, because now she can only yell at me limitedly, but when that got eliminated, the thorn in my side. So I'd like to do something that she.
So you're gonna work together, put together.
Put together a basic plan. I think we could just put in a couple of railroad ties and a little gravel on the bench. And have a decent looking area. People can enjoy the waterfront.
Is it off completely, or was that just
That was
off the
some-
green?
So the reason, if I recall, and this is a while ago,
Yeah,
is it was pulled off for financial reasons.
yeah.
We had a grant, a matching grant
Yeah.
of $250 if we spend $250. And at the time, we were looking at the DPW and the police department and just that would have went past the matching threshold, so it was just cash that we were spending to do it. And there was also a little bit of residential pushback. They started branding it Pilot Beach, or something like that.
Yeah, no, we got a problem with that. I mean, we're already talking.
Originally, when they were first designed, there were sidewalks going down Hance, and then when the project was done, there's no sidewalk. So those parks were designed originally with the idea of the walking model on the sidewalks going down to the pocket parks on Grange and Hance. So, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I'd
look
like
at
to
it.
figure something out, that
Yeah.
we can get an interim, maybe an interim solution, or maybe it'd be a permanent, when we're all done, maybe we all be satisfied, low impact.
Right, I think we were agreeing low impact, and perhaps the first rendition of the engineering plans was high impact, a lot of pavement.
Sure, could be,
Yes,
yeah.
and I think that is one of the reasons too, but yeah. to scale it back.
Let's figure it out. I'd like to do something as opposed to just,
But we sit on that big, whatever that is down there. It's like a water source or something.
yes, well, it's a outfall.
Outfall.
Yeah, it's a stormwater outfall, but no, but it certainly should be safer. It should be more enjoyable. It's an access point, so I'm looking for nothing out of the budget.
Okay. Well, we could talk. We'll figure something out. Good idea.
Living shoreline could kind of
Go into that.
go into all of this.
I got
economies of
expertise
scale.
here.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Cool.
Any other new business?
I want to point out, Josh, you didn't hear from me, right? Not a word, correct? He doesn't hear from me. I never say anything. So yeah, that caused a lot of storm in my house, but I didn't call. I just said I'll deal with
You
it.
mean Hance?
Yeah, my wife is smart. She's a doctor. She's smart and she's tough. And
Well, that's 2 out of 3 done though.
I know, but then you got
Pretty
to
good.
the way she was.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Just gotta pick a new park.
I know.
One other thing I had, the next meeting is Wednesday, July 10th, which I cannot attend, 7:30. So I'm happy for the meeting to continue if it must, or if, is it possible to find an alternate date for our July meeting?
I will also be out of the country that day.
I can send out an email to try to collect some dates. If you want to send me some potential dates first.
Yeah,
I
even
can
Tuesday, the day
solicit-
before, the 9th. Keep it close to the date, but as long as it doesn't like impact other,
I'm out the
Yes.
whole week, but I don't know how we handle that.
If we don't form, we can have the meeting, so
Right,
it really
I'm not
just,
part
it
of
just
it.
matters.
You're not part of
Yeah.
it.
All right, so we'll touch base tomorrow and then I'll send the meetings out to make sure they don't conflict with any other borough meetings.
Thank you. All right, open up for public comment.
If anyone online has a question, please use the raise hand feature and I will bring you over. Bonnie Versivia. Hi.
Hi, well, I feel like I had to say something after the Fourth Creek cleanup. Welcome, Sean.
Hi.
I'm awfully glad you told us a little bit about yourself. That was really helpful, and glad to hear that you worked in the natural area. And I will make it my goal to turn you into a tree hugger.
Challenge accepted.
So the Fourth Creek cleanup, that I guess I was talking to Kelly about, that parking lot that slopes down from Fairhaven Road through the Borough parking lot, through that other parking lot below, and everything just washes right into the river. It's just awful to look at. It's all vines and invasives on both sides. I actually think you need to engage the insurance company on the other side to perhaps do a cleanup there. And then across the street, it's all invasive Japanese knotweed. And it's, I mean, it's kind of like Shippey's Pond. I mean, the sooner you get to it, the likely, you're more likely to get rid of it. And I think it's awfully nice that the people at Shippey's kind of, made people aware. I don't know if they were looking for money to pay for it, but that's definitely a problem, that chestnut weed. Anyway, I do think that it would be great to, maybe the beautification committee could organize a volunteer cleanup. I mean, that certainly would be a way to beautify this town.
Yeah, Bonnie, I sent a picture of it, I think, of you,
Yeah.
and it's a water source. It's almost like if you're walking in one of those small, like a Manchester, Vermont, and they have those rivers that go under the bridges, like that is something that we could bring here, but it's covered entirely by knotweed and overgrown. So it could be a really fun, easy cleanup project for people to actually recognize that there's a water source running under. I think that would just be an easy fix. There's a sign there that designates that it's a watershed that goes into the Navasink, just a quick cleanup. Knotweed is so invasive. We have it in our yard, but like there are treatments that we could do to cut back on it significantly so that people can view something we should.
That's just addressing the knotweed problem in this town, something I would love to see the EC address. It is all over Fairhaven Fields by the Gentry. It is it's in the bird sanctuary. It's popped up in another part of the bird sanctuary on Ridge Road. It's by Bicentennial Hall. It is, it's a real problem. And it only gets worse. I mean, we address bamboo, and Japanese knotweed is Japanese bamboo. So it really is something that should be required to be addressed. Because it definitely doesn't stay on your property. So I would love for you to maybe think about taking that on.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else have a question? Please use the raise hand feature. There are no further questions.
Within the meeting.
Motion to adjourn. I think you need to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Go.
Second.
Are we all?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,